Koutou katoa, kua tatu mai ki tō tātou whare I tēnei rā. Before we hand over to Ngai Tahu Hui to open our hui and to our rangatira to conduct the mihi whakatau, I'd just like to advise of some health and safety procedures for this particular building, 15 Show Place, Te Whare o Te Waiponamu. In the event of an emergency, because we don't have tables and we can't stop, drop and hold, we're just going to ask you to hold in your position. If there's an earthquake or a sizable event, just hold in your position, and then we will guide you via two exits, not via the lifts, via the staircases, down to the bottom of the building, around the back, and then we will congregate out in the main car park area over here. So that is our safety procedures. We do have chief wardens and fire wardens and first aiders here as well if they are required, and if in an event we have to evacuate the building, we will have people who will guide you out of the building safely to the front of the car park area over there. Okay. Any other issues that we have, then please let one of the staff know. Awhina over here is our events manager, so any issues you have, she'll be happy to help you out with any queries you may have as well. And very finally, we are about to begin our live stream. This is going to be live streamed not just to our whānau out there in Aotearoa, but also to the regional hubs that we have across the Takiwā. So that's down into Murihiku, that's across to the west coast, and also to Araitiuru as well. And we'll be live streaming down into the Aoraki room so that anyone else who turns up, kuia kaumātua, will be bringing them in. Any other whānau members we will hold in the Aoraki room. They'll be able to see the live stream going in. And very finally, for those who want to ask questions for the open forum later on, they'll also be able to do that via the live stream itself or via our cell phone texting into us, and we'll be able to take their questions. And of course, we'll be taking questions from the floor. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, can I now please hand over to Ngai Tahu Hui to begin our mihi whakatau with the karakia. Kia ora tātou.
Tēnā rā koutou. Ko ronga au ki ngā hekinga me ngā pikinga o te wā nei, me te kawa kei mua i a tātou. Engari, ko te mea nui a mātou nei a tuahuriri, kia ngā wari ai tuhuarahi kei mua i a tātou. Nō reira, me tīmati te whakamoemati. Nō reira, te māngai, i ngā nei raponu, te tokoru tori tapu. Tēnei mātou koutou pōnunga, e inoi atu ki a koutou. Ho mai tāro hānō ki rongi a mātou i te wā nei, i te ata nei. Mana ki tia ha paitia o mātou mahi me o mātou whakaro. Kia hari ai tātou i rongi te uarahi tika me te rangi Māria. Ho mai tu ara hānoa ki rongi ngā whānau ki kai kaura, me ngā mōrihu e noho ana kei konei i rongi ngā marae. Mana ki tia ngā kaimahi me rātou katoa e hoa atu ana tā rātou aroha ki ngā whānau. Nō reira, ka tukina atu nei e nei inoi i rongi te kahata ponunga wā katoa ko te māngai hei tautoko mai ai nei ākini nei ai. Huri au ki a koutou ngā rangatira, ngā pauama, ngā tauama i hara mai nei te rā nei. Kia rongo wai ki te kōrero a te kopa reihana nei mō tēnei hui a tau. Nō reira, tēnā rā koutou ngā hapu katoa, koutou i hara mai nei no Murihiku, me kai kaura hoki, te tai hauru, no mai, haere mai ki nei Pākihi a Waitaha. Tēnā rā koutou. Ka huri ngā whakaro ki a rātou koe whetu rangitia, ngā mamai katoa i haere mai nei ki te wāhi, ka tū ngā aroha me ngā mihi ki a rātou. Nō reira, noho mai rā te rangi Māria, ka huri au ki te ao tangata nei ki a tātou. Koutou ngā rangatira, i rongi inga e nei pai, tēnā rā koutou. Ka huri au ki te reo Pāki mō te wānei to explain everything. I've heard quite a lot of complexities around the kawa of Te Here tangata here. So the important thing is we've just started with blessings for the day. So te koukou rarata, first things, it was obviously meant to be in your area, so on behalf of Tuahuriri, we would appreciate if we jointly took care of Te Herenga tangata for us all, and I think that's appropriate. But first of all, we'd like to acknowledge the pain in Kaikoura and the families there. We've been quite busy at home, but it's quite an important thing to listen to people's pain. And the pain really is quite deep, and it's sobering because the families are suffering. So all we can give today is words and prayers, but we are there to help. So that's acknowledging the whānau, but also all the taua and paua who have come here today, and to listen to the Hui Tau, the annual general meeting. But we understand there's a series of complex events to unravel before us. But most importantly, we have kukupā here who will have whakamoemiti for the taonga to hand over to Charlie and to Francois. Nō reira, tēnā rā koutou, kukupā. Piki te ora, piki te kaha, piki te māramatanga.
Ngai ko te kūtake, I tipu mai I roto I te pārekereke, a ngā mātua, a ngā tīpuna, ka kite a te kua. Even though the flower dies, the seeds are still maturing. The shoots sprout and divide, often dressed by the winds of time. But the plant that has been nurtured in the nursery of its parents and of its grandparents will one see the fruit. Tutahi kamihi atu, kia koe te maere. Nā haui tuku ata te arapata ki te rungarawa, hei whakamaru, hei tiaki, hei manaaki a tātou. I just want to acknowledge that Maire is saying a prayer on each of our behalf, that we be careful, guided, and looked after. E tikahana kia mihi ki te kaihanga. Koia te tīmatanga, te otinga, o ngā mea katoa, te arepo me te omata. Koia tō tātou tuarā wairua I roto I ngā piki me ngā heke o tēnei ao hurihuri. Ka hui ngā mate, hui ngā koro ki ngā mate, ngā koutou, ngā mātou, ngā tātou. Aha koa, o ngaro aka nohi, ngā rātou I weiho mai o rātou moe moe a, o rātou tohu tohu, o rātou wawata, hei arataki a tātou. I mihi to those of your loved ones, those of our loved ones who have become celestial stars in the galaxy of life. Even though they are lost from our sight, they have left behind their dreams, their hopes, and their aspirations as a guide for whatever we do. Ngā tapuai runga te whenua, ka ngaro e ngā haua te wā. Ngā tapuai runga te hine ngaro, mautunu, mautunu, mautunu. Haere tonu ngā whakamoemiti. Mō wātāta nei whanaunga o Kaikoura. Rātou kato. Aha kua koe, kia rātou katua. Ngā taumahatanga kua pā I rungi a rātou. Me ki, ngā tātou, e awhi e tautoko, te hiki wairua I rungi a rātou. I just also want to acknowledge those of Kaikoura at this moment. While we only have words and prayers, just to lift their spirits at this time. Mahara ina nahi nei, I tau mai I te ata, haurua mai I te waru pēr, e rōpū e whaka tiko tirana, I te haere, I te tautaki a rātou. Ka mihi atu ki a rātou, I te whakaro I roto I a rātou, I te rōpū. E haere nei ki te tautoko, wa tātou whanau ki rei. When I came in yesterday morning at 8:30, there was a group from Ngai Tahu getting ready to support, go up to Cheviot, to fly up into Kaikoura. Who were there? Cooks, workers, there to help. So we had a prayer for them, and away they went. They went because they know we need to help those that need help. Nui tērā ka mihi atu tērā tērā. Ka hoki mai anō ki te kaupapa ne. E nā, te heringa tangata. Koine te maungi, ka haere, I te wā mai I tēnā runanga, I te hui, te hui a tau, ne? Ana e tikana mai tātou o tāko, ki te tugati, kia tuahuriri me te whakaaro mo koukourara hoki. I rungi tērā, ahakoa kāre āta hiki atu kia koutou tuahuriri. Ki ngā whanau mo tuahuriri, engari, ko te whakaaro. Te haere tunu tērā āhuatanga. Hei, ko te ino, whaihuatanga. Te ātāhu o tērā āhuatanga. The principle of the Maori is bonding people. Bonding people in Aroha. Let's make Aroha infectious. I rungi tērā, ka mihi atu, kia koutou tuahuriri, ana ka tukuratu te Māori kia koutou, I rungi tērā, ka mihi atu kia koutou. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Tanga katoa, whai here, tēnei, mo tēnei āhuatanga. Te pāna I tēnei mea. I te wā, I tērā atu tau, āhua me kīs. Ware pēr, mo te mau. Engari, te tere o ngā whakaro o tēnei, kina ki atu ki tēnei. I rungi tērā, te tigana, Kia whakahokia, tēnei, ki ngā whanaunga, o Ngāti Waiwai, i rungi ngā whakaro. Aha koa, pai noe te wareware, pai noe te wareware, tēneri. Nā tō kama, hei kina ke atu i taua wā. Tēnei wā, a tukuna atu kia koe. Ke te rangatira, ke whāna ki tēnei. Me ki te whakaro o Ngāti Waiwai. Te whakaro, kare au i ki te wareware o Ngāti Waiwai. Engari ko te whakaro. Kirunga te rā, ka mihi atu kia koe. Tēnā koe. Ki te kapi i tēnei wāhanga, e whakamoemeti, ana tukuna te himene hoki. I tēnei wāta te whakamoemeti, matu tama weirua tapu me ngā anhera. Hei te inu ati nea kia pūtu. Ke humai te piki ora, te piki kaha, te piki māramatanga. Ki o mātou tinanu me o mātou weirua. Ke kaha e mātou ki te mahi, ngā mahi kei ngā mātou. Ke oti pai, ke oti rotu te aroha i rawa te rangi Māori. Nā te mea, ke hohonu ngā kōro, ka kōreo hie i tēnei rā. Mātou e arahi, e tiaki, i manāki i ngā wākatua. Ko te māngai, kei whakamāra mo tēnei whakapono, ko i hoa, kei whakaora. Aia nei āke me ā. Te honore? Te honore, te gloria, maramo ki te renua, whakaro, whaie, ki
Kei aku rangatira tēnā koutou katoa. Kei te kaiwhakarite i a tātou, e pai ai, te taura here, te arawhata ki tō tātou manu tāwhiorangi, e kara te maere tēnā rawa atu koe. Kei te pāpā, kei te kaumātua, kei te paua e te rangatira, kukupa tēnā rawa atu koe, i tau marumaru i a tātou, me ngā whakaro nui o te ako i te rānei. Koutou katoa e pai nei, tēnā koutou, matua Charlie, tēnā koutou Ngāti Hui kai. Te whakaaro nui rawa ia, kia tatu mai rā tātou ki tēnei whare i te rānei. Nō reira koutou katoa kōkō rarata Ngāti Hui kai tēnā koutou katoa. Uti rā tātou e pai nei tēnā koutou kia ora tātou katoa. I just want you to check your watches because we said we'd start the mihi whakatau at 10 and finish at 10:30 and it's 20 past. So I can tell you in Ngāpuhi there'd be a 2-hour mihi whakatau and a 2-minute report back. So we're already ahead of the bunch. And of course, there are a lot of things, as you said, Tamari, complexities going on at the moment. So thank you, whānau, for being with us. We do have a live stream audience with us at the moment. We have 4 regional hubs running at the moment, and also in the Aoraki room, a live stream there as well for the overflow of whānau who have come here today. So thank you for being here today. Ko ngā whakaaro nui, ki o koutou whanaunga, ki te rā moka me ki o te takiwa o Ngai Tahu Arā, ki Ngāti Kuri, ki Kai Koura, nō reira ko tātou e pai nei te rāne, i rungi te aroha, i rungi i te whakaaro nui ki a rātou, tēnā koutou katoa. Could I now ask the leadership of Te Runanga Ngai Tahu, Kai Whakahaere Tā Mark, and also the chair of Ngai Tahu Holdings, Trevor Bird, and the CEO of Ngai Tahu Holdings, Mike Sang, and the CEO of Te Rūnanga Ngai Tahu Hui here. We'll just move the chairs over now. That's all right, we have a very staunch health and safety policy, Trevor, so that'll come up in the Te Rūnanga Hui next month. Very quickly again, ladies and gentlemen, and for those on the live stream, bear with us whilst we go through these procedures. But again, just to talk about health and safety, so we have reached our limit here. Any more whānau that will be coming into the whare today will be moving into the aoraki room just to make sure we can look after you on this floor. Again, in the case of an emergency where we may need to exit the building, we'll be exiting via the staircases. We'll have our chief wardens and our guides guiding you down the stairwells out the back of the building, and then we will congregate at the front of Te Whare o Te Waiponamu, and we will meet you there. Any queries or questions you may have, we have our wardens and also Phil, our GM of Comms, and also our events manager who will guide you and look after you with any queries that you may have. And finally, and one other point, ladies and gentlemen, yes, we will be going through the program today. I'd just like to inform you of what that program is. So very quickly, I will be introducing you to the Kaiwhakahaere, Mark Solomon, with the Te Rūnanga report back, and then introducing the chair of Ngai Tahu Holdings, Trevor Bird, for the Ngai Tahu Holdings report back. We will then have open forum at or just after 11 o'clock. Open forum will be for about an hour today, and we are inviting questions from whānau, and we have already had a number of whānau register their questions. Whānau who are watching the live stream can join us and also ask questions via the live stream, whether that be on the live stream itself, or we have a ticker tape going at the bottom of the live stream with a cell phone number that whānau can use to text their questions in. We'll be moderating questions as we go through. For those questions we can't answer in that allotted time for open forum, we will come back to those whānau members either via email or indeed via social media to inform them of answers to the questions that they put today. So we are going to try and answer all questions that we receive for the open forum. We will then close open forum at around 12 o'clock, where we will be then having a presentation on Auahi o Ora. These are the Papatipu Rūnanga aspirations that were presented in August and September this year from the Deputy Kaiwhakahaere, Lisa Tumahai. And then, ladies and gentlemen, a very special treat. We will be having the rangatahi of Ngai Tahu with a number of presentations, both via video, two of whom are videoing into us from overseas, one in China and one in London. We'll also have a presentation from one of your rangatahi who is here with us today, and we'll also be having a summary from the Pōkaiao, the Stanford and Silicon Valley delegations who went to America less than 2 months ago, and then we'll have karakia whakai at about 1 o'clock. If we do vary on the time a bit, ladies and gentlemen, bear with us as we go through the program. So, can I now, without further ado, please make welcome the Kaiwhakahaere of Te Rūnanga o Ngai Tahu, who will do the Te Rūnanga o Ngai Tahu report back. Ara, ko tā Mark Solomon. He te rangatira tā tēnā koe.
Tēnā tātou te whānau. Tako mihi aroha ki a koutou mō te haramai ki ko nei, i te whiti kōrero, i te whakarongo ki te mahi a iwi o Te Rūnanga o Ngai Tahu. Koutou ngā whanaunga kei muri te pauaka te whakaata, tēnā koutou, nau mai haramai. This year, we are celebrating the 10-year anniversaries of 3 important tribal initiatives, Aoraki Bound, Whairawa, and the Ngai Tahu Fund. All 3 programs have undergone a review to make sure that they are still relevant and are continuing to enhance the personal, cultural and financial growth of our whānau and communities. Aoraki Bound has had 22 courses and almost 250 alumni have had their lives enriched through the program. Whairawa, we now have almost 22,000 members, including 70% of tamariki aged 15 and under signed up to Whairawa. The total fund value as at the 30th of June was 52 million. Whānau have withdrawn a total of 4.97 million over the years for tertiary education, a first home or a more comfortable retirement. Coming to that. The Ngai Tahu Funds. Over 10 years, the Ngai Tahu Funds have invested more than 8.5 million into supporting over 850 projects to strengthen cultural excellence. This year, 63 projects received a total of $637,912, and just over $2.5 million was also allocated to the Marae Development Fund. Since 2012, $7.6 million has been allocated to a range of new marae, rebuilds, repairs and maintenance throughout the rohi. Financial highlights. We have had another positive financial result, which now sees our net worth in excess of $1.2 billion. The annual distribution from Ngai Tahu Holdings totaled $44 million. Under tribal development, which means a total of $396 million has been distributed since settlement. I would like to acknowledge our commercial businesses for yet another stellar financial performance across the holdings group. It is these positive financial results that allow us to develop the initiatives and activities to enable our whānau and communities to be the best they can be. Thank you to staff and governors for your hard work, professionalism and ultimately successful financial outcomes. 2025 distribution. This year we distributed $400,000 to each of the Papatipu Runanga through the Te Pūtea Whakamahi grants, an increase of $40,000 on the previous year and a total of $7.2 million. This figure is set to increase again in the financial year of 2017. We spent $11.4 million on oranga, $4.1 million on Ngai Tahutanga, $3.5 million on mātauranga, and $4.6 million in the environmental space. Oranga. Building strong, vibrant and economically successful communities is at the heart of our tribal economy strategy. This means not only looking for ways to grow opportunities for Papatipu Runanga, but also finding ways to work with whānau to build economies in the home and enabling home ownership. 25 whānau enterprises were launched this year through our Business and Enterprise Development Initiative, Puna Pākihi. We launched a home ownership program with 3 refurbished homes in Addington, and we distributed $1.3 million to kaumātua via the kaumātua grants. Ngai Tahutanga. Kura Reo Rakatahi, Manua Hou, the Aspiring Leaders Forum and recently the Rangatahi Forum at Iwi Chairs, among a range of rangatahi initiatives to support the growth of Ngai Tahutanga and capability. Our tribal registry is now over 55,000 members. In the last 6 months of the year, the Whakapapa unit received 1,266 registrations, a 36% increase on the previous 3 years. The latest Gone No Address campaign has seen continuous improvement in reducing the number of whānau we don't have a current address for, although you need to remind your families. Give us your addresses. I think we've got in excess of 12,000 Gone No addresses. Come back. We want you on the registry. We want to know where you are. Mātauranga. We are growing our mātauranga expertise and have committed to channeling resource into our vision for our regions and support for our Papatipu Runanga with the establishment of regionally based kaitoko mātauranga positions. To date, we have successfully recruited 6 kaitoko. The Pepe Pack is an exciting initiative aimed at helping newborn Ngai Tahu babies and their whānau grow a strong cultural connection to their iwi. Packs contain bedding, books, clothing, baby's first piece of pounamu, their whakapapa chart, information about the iwi saving scheme Whairawa, and is given to all newly registered Ngai Tahu babies. About 300 have been delivered so far, both locally and overseas. Te Ao Tūroa, weaving the Ngai Tahu values into RMA planning documents, resource consent proposals and conservation management strategies has been a priority for the environmental team. This is a part of our commitment to strengthening our regional influence through providing support for Papatipu Runanga. Among our mahi in this area, we supported Ngāti Waiwai to work in close partnership with the Department of Conservation to co-draft the Paparoa National Park Plan. We also assisted Papatipu Runanga in the Christchurch Rohi to identify and seek inclusion of approximately 96 significant Ngai Tahu places and sites in the Cultural Heritage chapter of the Christchurch Replacement District Plan. At an iwi level, we have been working with Manaaki Whenua Land Care Research to develop a customary use and management framework for native taonga. Climate change. We have undertaken a climate change project to look at how issues such as rising sea levels and increasing temperatures are impacting our rohe. This is due for completion in June 2017. The DOC relationship. We have been working with the Department of Conservation to improve our relationship at both a Papatipu Runanga and Turunanga level. We have developed a relationship engagement framework. Central to this has been agreeing a set of protocols on our joint responsibilities relating to the Treaty of Waitangi and the Deed of Settlement. Next year we will celebrate the 20-year anniversary since the signing of the Deed of the Settlement. The journey hasn't always been smooth, but we have worked hard to build a solid economic foundation. From that foundation, we have developed many successful initiatives for the development and well-being of whānau, of which we can be proud. We haven't always got it right, but we continue to learn, and in all that we do, we are committed to enabling positive outcomes for Ngai Tahu Whānui. 2017 will be a year for us to come together and celebrate our first 20 years since settlement. Hui a Iwi will be one of these occasions. The settlement was signed at Takahanga in 1997, so it would be fitting that 20 years on we celebrate that in Kaikoura. However, with the events of late in Kaikoura, Turunanga is considering moving the Hui a Iwi to Christchurch. We cannot know how Kaikoura will be in 12 months' time. We have learnt firsthand how difficult it is to rebuild after a massive earthquake. Our people are resilient and they will recover and rebuild, but we will need to have certainty about a venue, infrastructure and accommodation, and we will keep you posted on this situation. Next year we will also see the first tribal-wide Runanga Sports Day held in Christchurch. Ngai Tahu will take place on Saturday, March the 11th. The focus will be on whanaungatanga, healthy activities, healthy rivalry and having fun. This will be an annual event, and like our Hui a Tau and Hui a Iwi, will move around the takiwā. I encourage all Runanga to participate and get your teams and your watches together. We will be sending out information to your Runanga representatives and officers through our networks very soon. Excuse me. Today, we launch our first Manawa Ngai Tahu report. Manawa Ngai Tahu is a sustainability and values-based framework we have developed across the Turunanga Group. Whānau will be familiar with our annual report, which focuses on Turunanga's financial performance and our investment in initiatives aimed at creating positive outcomes for whānau. Manawa Ngai Tahu builds on this, but it is focused on how we do things rather than what we do. As a values-based organisation, it is our first attempt to create a framework to measure our cultural, social, environmental and financial performance against our tribal values. The project has been led by Ngai Tahu Holdings with a working group from across the Turunanga Group. We talked and listened to whānau at 8 regional hui across the country and met with staff and our business partners. We have sought to understand and map what our journey towards sustainability as an iwi looks like. We have asked ourselves, how as an organisation and business owner do our actions uphold and manifest the values of manaakitanga, whanaungatanga, rangatiratanga, kaitiakitanga, tuhungatanga and tikanga. We believe we are on the right path, but we acknowledge there is a long way to go, with challenges to meet along the way. We have started creating some goals, targets and actions, and these will evolve as our journey continues. I hope that it will resonate with Ngai Tahu Whānui, Kaimahi and our commercial entities, customers, partners and others. I encourage you to read the report and give us your feedback. This brings me to the end of my report back presentation, but I want to leave you with a short video that tells the journey of Manawa Ngai Tahu to this point and shares some of the insights from whānau. Please enjoy. Kia ora tātou.
He manawa tahi, he manawa ora, He manawa toa, te manawa Ngai Tahu. Manawa Ngai Tahu. Over the past year, we have been talking to our whānau, runanga, kaimahi, and partners about how we do business. Our Ngai Tahu values are the heartbeat of our businesses, and it's important for us to check that pulse often. Whānau told us we are doing some things really well, but that there is plenty of room for improvement. Development and the education of our people remains a top priority. It is important that our businesses are leading employers within their fields, that they focus on the continued growth of their staff, and they create more opportunities for Ngai Tahu to become involved. We heard that manaakitanga is about making sure our people are well in all aspects of their lives. The expectation of our businesses is to treat, respect, and support others in a manner which enhances our tribal mana. This includes making sure that all staff employed by the iwi, regardless of where they work and what they do, are safe. Rangatiratanga is about our self-determination. We need to find ways to support our regions to develop, to help find partners for them to collaborate with. We also expect that our leaders across the iwi and within our businesses are role models of our Ngai Tahu values. To be a kaitiaki, you expect your Ngai Tahu businesses to be leaders in sustainability and best practice. You have challenged us to balance our financial pursuit with outcomes which lead to increased well-being for our environment, our lands, our waters and their inhabitants. Manawa Ngai Tahu is about our future. It is about making sure now that we have the right tools and we are travelling on the right path to ensure the well-being of future generations. Our values and our businesses can successfully work together, and the voice of our rangatahi, our future leaders, help guide us on this pathway.
At Ngai Tahu Seafood, we need to show our manaaki to our whānau, and that first and foremost starts with our staff. They're the ones that are doing the mahi for us, so we've got to look after them, make sure they come to work and they're happy with what they're doing, and there's opportunities for them to grow. And then that extends on to their whānau as well, making sure they're well supported. Because Ngai Tahu is really a whānau of 55,000 or so. So yeah, it's all about looking after them. The local runanga as well. A lot of our seafood plants are based in rural areas out by where the runanga are, so to have good relationships with them is pretty important.
To me, kaitiakitanga is about being stewards of our environment, about being only caretakers in this earth and ensuring that it is left in a better state for our future generations. Ideally, I would like Ngai Tahu farming to be looked at for its organic sustainability, and as a food producing company who feed their people first and then make their money afterwards.
As Ngai Tahu property, the three things that determine success in our business would be first, economic stability, because that will ensure that we can keep doing what we're doing. Second, that what we're doing is benefiting our whānau and iwi in the South Island, because as Ngai Tahu property it's important that we give back to the well-being of our iwi. And third, that the staff are happy, because if the staff are happy then the business will be able to carry out everything it needs to.
Being CEO of Ngai Tahu Properties and being an advocate for our reo Māori, I would push for investments into land that we reinstate the traditional names of those places, that tikanga prevails, and that tikanga is at the forefront of why we do things, of why we buy that particular farm or we bought that particular piece of land in the middle of the city, is because it means something to our iwi and it means something for our coming generations.
Rangatiratanga is about leadership, and we'd like to see Ngai Tahu Tourism embrace that by making the conscious decision to set their own standard of what an iwi-owned enterprise should look like, rather than following existing standards of what other tourism ventures look like in New Zealand. So we think we've got a real example to demonstrate rangatiratanga by using the unique platform that we have to embrace our values and communicate them to the rest of New Zealand and the international manuhiri that we have.
So for example, we could be trying to normalise te reo within all our ventures. So we want to make sure that people are pronouncing the words right, but then also just going that step above and aiming to kōrero Māori whenever they can. Toko reo, toko ohoho, toko reo, toko mapihi mauria. So our language is our awakening, it's the window to our souls. So we want to be showing our manuhiri that.
Manawa Ngai Tahu is about being brave. It's about being honest. It's about challenging ourselves to improve the way we do business in line with our Ngai Tahu values. We intend to regularly report on our progress and to seek your feedback on areas where we can further improve. This is our commitment to doing business in the Ngai Tahu way.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the launch of Manawa Ngai Tahu. Ho mai te bagi bagi. E te kai whakahaere te rangatira e tā māk tēnā rawa atu koe, nā iwa no tēnei kaupapa hui taki ake I tēnei rā, o tira I tēnei ata tēnā koe. And you've heard some interesting and challenging statements in that presentation, and who better to perhaps answer those challenging statements and also to report back on the Ngai Tahu Holdings Group report back for 2016. Would you please make welcome the Chair of Ngai Tahu Holdings, Mr. Trevor Bird. Trevor, tēnā koe.
Kia ora tātou, ka mihi atu au kia koutou katoa. My mother used to describe me as a bull in a china shop, and when you saw what I did over there, you can probably understand why. This is my 8th report back to iwi and the 6th hui a tau. So it's the 8th time I've stood up here. Which I reflect on that as a Pākehā with the immense honour and privilege that I feel about continuing to be associated with Ngai Tahu. I love the way we describe ourselves at Ngai Tahu Holdings as a family of family businesses. And I love the way that we're embracing Manawa Ngai Tahu and what it will mean for us as we go forward about not what we do, but how we do it. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we go forward, because I describe it as te hairanga. It's a journey for us, particularly those of us that are Pākehā, but it's a journey that we're really enjoying. So I've only got 4 slides. I'm going to start with the first one, which is just a sort of overview of what your asset base looks like now. And I'll do that with a comparison to 5 years ago. If I put the same thing up 5 years ago, there would be less columns because we didn't have Ngai Tahu Farming established as 100% subsidiary and a company that we have. And under each of those, there would be a lot less. Ngai Tahu Property was relatively, it was quite large for us, but relatively small compared to what has happened in the last 5 years around residential property development. Ngai Tahu Seafood's similar to what it was, still a great and fantastic business. Ngai Tahu Tourism has grown considerably. And even this slide's out of date because there's 2 more assets that we add underneath that. And the main one's Ngai Tahu Capital, where we have broadened our investment base into some relationships and partnerships with key entities. The 2 this year that we've done and added are Hilton Haulage, transport company, and Watson and Son, the number 2 player in Manuka honey in New Zealand. So what does that mean? And it is the strategy that we are following around diversification of your asset base. Diversification basically equals lower risk, and over the long term equals better financial performance. We know it's not just about financial performance, but I love the way one of the individuals on the Manawa Ngai Tahu video said, first and foremost, you've got to be economically stable so that we can do some of these things. So if I go to my second slide, which will only be the only one I'm going to look to about the numbers, and I just draw you to that first box up top, which is the line of assets, which last year 1.35 billion, and then we finished this year with 1.58. That's about a $230 million increase. Actually, if you take the settlement, the original settlement of 170 million, and add relativity payments that we have achieved, the settlement monies, that's about equivalent to that. It exceeds that in 1 year. So that's significant growth, and something we all should reflect on that is very powerful for us. I think, though, that it's not just about how big and how diverse you are. It is about, are you getting returns? Are you financially managing those assets as best as you can? And so what we would like to do is compare ourselves to the best investment companies that we can, and the best benchmarks that we can. And so that bottom table, we have both the 1 year return, but more importantly, the 5 year return. You can do something 1 year. Can you repeat it consistently and over the long term? And if you look at our returns, they are world class. It's the best one that we would compare ourselves to would be the New Zealand Super Fund, broad-based, New Zealand, large scale, and over that period we've been able to outperform them. It's not a competition, but I know you'll all look at Waikato Tainui and compare yourselves, and that is a considerable difference. Now, I won't go into why, but they are not pursuing a diversified strategy like we have pursued, which has paid dividends for us. So I think that's very telling and something we all should be extremely proud of. But that is the what. That is what we do, and what we do pretty well, I think. I think what Manawa Kaitahu does is force us to focus on how we do it. And so I want to come to that after I do a quick summary of just how each of these entities that you've got has performed for the year. So this slide shows a quick breakdown by each of the entities. Ngai Tahu Tourism's had a record year. They've had a fantastic year, actually. Visitors to New Zealand has grown considerably, and the businesses that Ngai Tahu Tourism had are really well positioned. And they've made 2 recent acquisitions. You would have seen the helicopter company, Glacier Southern Lakes Helicopters, that they've acquired 100% of, and 50% of the Takapau Earth, Sea and Sky business, which is great. Ngai Tahu Seafood, they hate me saying this, but it's another record year, because one day it won't be a record year, but we'll expect them to continue to do that. Fantastic business. Joseph Thomas, new chief executive there, leading that team exceptionally well. We expect that to continue. Ngai Tahu Farming, you would say, has had a really tough... It's been its first full year of operation, and Andrew Priest and the team, I think, have done a fantastic job in such a difficult environment. When you look at the payout for Fonterra and dairy farms, the way the guys have focused on their asset base and what they can do. And they've done it in a way that's respected the environment, and a key to them is about sustainability, and it'll be a key plank in Manawa Kaitahu about the way they are able to report on that, how they're protecting the land that they own. Ngai Tahu Property made 63 million of profit for us. That is fantastic. If you think 5 years ago, we were lucky to make 63 million of profit in total. So yet again, the engine room of our businesses has performed strongly, and significant progress for them on entering the Auckland market. As residential property development in Christchurch has tapered off, they've diversified and are entering the Auckland market, which will be a real challenge and interesting for them. And finally, in Ngai Tahu Capital, as I said, 2 large acquisitions. Watson & Son, which is number 2 in Manukahani, and Hilton Haulage, which is the local South Canterbury, South Island-based distribution company. So again, I come to all the what's, very good. What are we doing about progressing the how? How we do this? How does what we do and what we own and what we invest in reflect Ngai Tahu and Ngai Tahu values. And I use this this picture, and it's a bit detailed, but basically I call it te hairanga. It's a journey for us. We've come from an area, and we're still in some cases, this area on the left, and we're moving towards what we want to do on the right. So if I look at the left, you know, we talked about stakeholder engagement. Well, we need to do more than that. It actually needs to be totally and fully aligned with Te Rananga and you as the iwi. We talk about developing cultural understanding. It actually needs to go much further than that, and that how we make money is just clearly aligned with Ngai Tahu values. And instead of talking about considering cultural aspirations and considering values and things we do, actually it has to be that culture and values will drive everything that we do. If that means we have to dispose of some businesses, then so be it. That's what we should be looking to do. And it means moving from having some Ngai Tahu people in our businesses to having lots of Ngai Tahu. And how do we encourage and develop that? My last slide just shows what I call the framework on how we will do this. Manawa Kaitahu is key to us. It will provide a framework under which the businesses that you own will be able to report to you about their progress. Just picking a couple, Ngai Tahu Farming will be able to report what are they doing about sustainability, what are they doing about the environment, and are they managing and delivering to your expectations. All of the businesses should be able to report, are we employing more Ngai Tahu? So it provides a fantastic framework. The other piece to it is, do we get the right people involved? And so we have this program called Aukaha, which really is a framework that looks at how do we assess the people that are there in our businesses against what do we assess them? And we call it skills and competencies. They are both technical but also behavioural. Do people inherently exhibit Ngai Tahu values in what they do? They're the people we want to employ. They may be Ngai Tahu, they may be Pākehā. And so Aukaha provides us the structure to align who we recruit and how we measure and manage them. I think if you add those two together, we'll have the framework and the structure and the people to manage through that. If I look at our 5 companies from the first slide, all of the chief executives there are new within the last 2 years, every one of them. We've got new chairs on our companies. In the last 5 years, half of the directors of those companies are new. And more we're recruiting them along the lines of the Aukaha framework as opposed to their generic expertise in business. And I think that's more we will lead to. So I think you can expect to see, and you should demand, a greater representation of Ngai Tahu's values in whatever Ngai Tahu Holdings does. And we will look forward to that. After all, our reason for being, mō tātou o mau ka uri a muri akanei. Kia ora.
Thank you very much, Trevor, for that report. Ngā mihi nui kia koe. Can I also acknowledge just some of the CEs and chairs of our subsidiary groups who are here. So Joseph Thomas, Ngai Tahu Seafood, Te Tarangatira Joseph tēnā koe. Quinton Hall from Ngai Tahu Tourism is here, as well as the chair of Ngai Tahu Tourism, Sarah Smith. Andrew Priest, the CEO, almost promoted you, Andrew. The CEO of Ngai Tahu Farming is here as well. And we've also had some communication from David Kennedy, the CEO, and I believe Barry is on his way as well, the chair of Ngai Tahu Property. So thank you all for being here. And can I also acknowledge very quickly the reps, the Papatipu Runanga representatives who are in and amongst the throng here today. Tēnā koe tō katoa e ko rangatira. Okay, we are now going to prepare ourselves for the open forum. Okay, here we go. So we're going to take one registered question that came in a few days ago, and then we'll take questions from the floor, and we will do a process from there. So the first question is from Donald Couch, and this question reads, tertiary education grants and scholarships. The overdue need to review and increase those. Now, I believe this is either for Tāmāk or for Arihia. Perhaps Arihia, you might have an answer to that question.
Ngā mihi nui aroha mai. That's it. Aroha mai. Ngai tahu whānau, whānui, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou. It feels like, first of all, that we're on a TV show up here and getting ready to press the buzzer. So please let me attend to the first question. So the question relates to scholarships and funding around our education. And recently, very recently, and just this weekend actually, Tarunanga o Tahiri, the subcommittee of Tarunanga, has voted to increase the scholarships. Some of your rangatahi or even some of you may have been recipients of scholarships, bursaries throughout the years, and they have voted to undertake a major overhaul of our education in terms of the distribution, and not only a major overhaul, but looking at doubling some of those scholarship opportunities and looking at stretching those further. You saw in the presentation earlier what is being delivered in terms of education, and it is a critical area that we are continuing to build upon. So the answer to that question is yes, we're onto it. Kia ora.
Sorry, just two more questions and then we'll come to the floor. Aroha mai. This one for Tāmāk. This one comes from Jill, particularly related to housing and kaumātua housing. Is there any way papakainga land could become available for whānau to contribute to kaumātua units similar to retirement village operations?
Papakainga land is not under the control of Tarunanga o Ngai Tahu. It is under the control of the whānui. But there are measures that are coming into place through different acts of legislation that enable papakainga housing to be a lot more easier to go through and to access. If I use my own region as an example, we were visited by our local council about 12 months ago and asked to identify any areas of our land that we wish to turn into papakainga. I raised the challenge back, under your district plan, we're entitled to 1 house per 5 acres because most of our lands are reserved. No. Whatever you want, density, we will change the district plan. So there are more and more opportunities coming, but again, papakainga is not held by the tribe, it is held by the whānui.
Kia ora, thank you, Tā. A question for either Trevor or Mike related to that topic. Would there be any way Ngai Tahu Iwi would look at a concept or a venture similar to Wesley Care units for social housing, as in one-bedroom self-contained units available to rent at reasonable rates to see whānau housed till their end of their lives, then able to be used for the next generations?
I've seen the most junior guy up for the difficult questions. The answer is twofold. One, we don't currently have plans for doing that, but we wouldn't say no, but more likely it would be done in conjunction with a Tarunanga program, so you're working collectively with the office and getting the combined benefit of what holdings would bring as well as what the distribution and the office brings through it. So if there was room for that discussion at Tarunanga, we'd certainly be happy to be part of it and would support anything that came out of that.
Ka pai. Kia ora, Mike. A question from the floor?
I belong to the Mana Whenua committee, and it's not all good on those farms. I'm telling you that. I know for a fact. I know of an incident where we've had one of our own people, Ngai Tahu, on a farm, and he has been working on that farm for 3 years. He's still on $15 an hour. Yes. And for me, and the rest of our Mana Whenua group, we think that our people are treated like slaves. I would like to know, I already know that there's one Ngai Tahu farm manager there, but over the last few years, that's the only one.
2.
No, he's not. Well, I have a question about that. But if there's 2, well, that's a bit of a miracle. No, all is not well out on those farms, I can tell you that.
Well, We do have 2 Ngai Tahu managers on the farms.
Yeah, one's my relation, and I hear the other one's yours.
He's married to my first cousin's daughter, and he is Ngai Tahu, and he's from Awarua.
Okay. All right. But that's beside the point. There should be more than that. And I know for a fact that our Ngai Tahu people are not being accepted as employees on those farms. I have another relation that applied. He's been 9 years into farming. He applied twice, but he's been turned down. And he comes from Tuahiwi, a very prominent family from Tuahiwi. So the mana whenua group from Ngai Tahu Hui are not happy with the way the farms are being run at the moment. Kia ora koutou.
When it just comes to the wages, we are moving towards the living wage as a minimum right across the whole of the structure. Most of our organisations and companies are already there. Right across this structure, of course, we're there. The 2 areas where there's a bit of an issue at getting to the living wage is tourism, because tourism is a seasonal industry, and the other is Go Bus, because Go Bus is an issue where their business is based on tendering, and you're in a very competitive market, but the whole organisation is moving towards the living wage. And I know that there have been issues out at the farm, but I also know from talking to some of the other farm workers that they're not all the big issues that they've been made out to be. And some of the workers have come back and told us that. But we are moving towards the living wage across the structure.
Kia ora tātou. Just one note if I can, sorry, and Auntie Aroha, we'll get your question next. If you do have questions of a sensitive nature, related particularly to employees, can you register those through us, please? We've got some monitoring aspects that we need to have across those particular questions because of the live stream aspect that we have. So if you do have sensitive questions related to employees, could you please register those through the table? Kia ora tātou, Auntie Aroha, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koutou te whānau. I have some questions. First one is Ryman shares. Why are you selling Ryman shares when there's such a big business going in this country for kaumātua? Number 2, do we have offshore investments? I don't remember seeing anything to do with investing. I mean, we're going to Auckland. What about offshore? And the third question is, you talked about Ngai Tahu directors. How many directors are on these companies who are Ngai Tahu? And what do you mean by the Aukaha plan program that gets Ngai Tahu people onto these directorships?
Kia ora, Auntie Aroha, tēnā koe. So first one, Ryman shares, Trevor.
Sure. Ryman shares, yes, we are selling Ryman shares, but we'll sell them down to a level that we're comfortable with so that we don't just have one big lump exposure to Ryman. Yes, it's a great, aged healthcare is a great sector, but using the word overexposed, we were heavily weighted in that. So we're just selling that down, and that helps fund some of the other acquisitions and investments we want to make. We'll always hold a core of Ryman, always, and a big piece of it.
Offshore investments?
Offshore investments, specifically we've got no businesses that are offshore, but if you think of internationally, our tourists come from offshore, so we're heavily reliant on the sort of offshore aspects of that, the international aspects of that with tourism. We have a lot of exports in seafood that go to global markets, China in particular. And within our equities, our share portfolios, we have a number of exposures. They're relatively small, like $10 to $20 million of investments in funds that are offshore based. So there is a bit of an exposure, but you know, the heart of Ngai Tahu's Te Waiponamu. You know, so we are heavily and strongly Aotearoa, but also Te Waiponamu, which is good.
How many Ngai Tahu directors?
Gosh, I can't count up, but I would suggest more than a third on each of the boards, at least a third. If I take seafood, I think there's 4 out of 5 are Ngai Tahu. Tourism's 1 out of 5. Property's 2 out of 5. And farming's 2 out of 5. So the old kaha program, if you like, says how do we, we've not excluded, but Ngai Tahu, people with a Ngai Tahu background who may not have had the commercial experience have sort of missed out because of that. What we now need to recognise that on all of our boards you need a balance. You need a balance of good commercial experience and capability, good governance experience, but you also need connectedness and people who understand Ngai Tahu tanga, and can translate that into commercial boards. And so that, I think, will create more opportunity for more Ngai Tahu to be involved. What that looks like. I mean, we have an aspiration with it. The majority of our directors will be Ngai Tahu. And ultimately, it'd be great if 100% were Ngai Tahu.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe Trevor. Thank you. A question from online from Gail Thompson in Awarua. Awarua, one of my favourite papatupu runanga. As are all the papatupu runanga across the takiwā. A question for either Trevor or Mike. Why did Ngai Tahu Holdings fail to exercise the RFR over the recent Landcorp sale offering?
Two aspects to that. One is we believe we've got a lot of rural land, and if we look at our strategy of what we want to do as an investment diversification, we've got lots of rural land. Adding more to it didn't make sense. Secondly, those Landcorp farms generally are not the best ones. Why are Landcorp going to sell off their best farms? And so it just did not make sense to look at them and to buy them. So it's purely commercial.
I've got another question related to that, but I think it's for Mark.
Okay.
If I can ask you, Mark, to answer these ones. Again from Awarua, a question specifically related to Ngai Tahu owning less land now than it owned following the 1998 deed of settlement?
I can't give you the exact figures, but I will be able to do so in the new year because that's a process that Te Aparangi has undertaken. But it's my personal view that we're about at the same level. So while we have sold some forestry blocks like Tūtaki, etc., we've also bought timberlands west coast. We've just purchased a 7,000 hectare block for offsetting. So I think in total we're pretty much to the same as what we were when we received the assets from the Trust Board settlement.
Okay. Just again from Awarua, again for you, I think, Mark. Did Te Rūnanga Ngai Tahu authorise the sale of the land, especially forest lands? So I think that's following on from the previous question, which I think you've answered, but has Te Rūnanga Ngai Tahu authorised sale of land, especially forest lands?
Yes, we did.
Ka pai. And the third question on this sheet of questions, is the new Ngai Tahu Holdings strategy aimed at making us rich, and does Te Rūnanga o Ngai Tahu endorse that policy?
I certainly believe that the more income they can bring for us as an iwi is a positive, but there has to be a balance in what we're doing. So, as an example, and I'll use the land of Balmoral and Irwell. So we have 17,500 hectares of lands that were purchased post the settlement, which has always been the dream to convert it all into farming for Ngai Tahu. One of the issues that we're debating, and it is on the table right now. So traditionally, farming returns 3.8%, around that. And yet we have instructed through our financial framework that we expect a minimum of 11% return from the Holdings Corporation consolidated. Theoretically, if we do the $500 to $700 million investment and convert all of Balmoral and Irwell into farming, by doing that, because of the reduced returns, by around 2065, we would forego in the region of $1.6 billion in returns. That is reality. But we have not made the determination to sell those lands. There are other things that we're looking at the moment. As you've seen up here, we're into a 50% shareholding of Manuka honey. Perhaps that's another potential to look at. Some of those lands being put into plantation Manuka. There are a whole raft of things. But certainly the Holdings Corporation has brought the issue to us, and it is under discussion at the moment.
Thank you, Ta. Questions from the floor, ladies and gentlemen? Over there and just up here. Let's go with our new bishop first, shall we? And then we'll cross the floor.
Oops, no, I'm Catholic.
Ngai Tahu, whanauka tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. The question that I have is really related to your last point there about Manuka honey. And just recently, we in Papatupurunanga have been thrown in front of us hundreds of applications for land in our regions to be given to beekeepers outside the West Coast. And I'm assuming that some of them would be Ngai Tahu. My question on this really is that what level of negotiations and with Papatūānanga will Ngai Tahu Holdings have for the future? Because it's also a potential for our own Papatūānanga to increase its base as far as finance is concerned.
I think there's a raft of different issues here. So Te Rūnanga o Ngai Tahu is definitely at the table, challenging with the Conservation Department about concessions, access, etc. for beekeeping. Holdings Corporation over their purchase of Watson's honey. I think I saw a paper that we need 80 apiaries just for our own industries. So there will be input from Runanga and Whānui, and yes, it is a growing potential industry for us. But it's at the formation stage. And there's issues that go with Manuka honey, in the sense that the nation produces about 3,000 tonnes of Manuka honey per annum, but 9,000 is sold. And it's sold in blends, but it's being sold as Manuka honey. There's already been a kickback from China because of this sort of thing. So one of the other issues that we're engaged in is trying to work with the government to bring standards in so that we can protect the future of the Manuka honey industry. But there's lots of issues that go with it, Richard, and we will be coming out. But at this stage, one of the big pushes challenging the Conservation Department, how do we get our concessions into there? So it is ongoing.
Ka pai. Kia ora tā, Mark. We'll go from one makawhio to another makawhio. Ka pai te mata, tēnā koe.
Yeah, kia ora, and thanks for that, Rich, because I was going to ask that same question, and I'm pleased with that answer with the bees, because it is a major issue. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Terry Scott from Makawhio. But as usual, when you introduce yourselves, and certainly Charlie Croft always does, saying that he comes from the centre of the universe, I've been told by my Runanga that I must not say that because we are the epicentre of the universe.
I thought that was quite good.
In this last week, I've been involved. I'm on 3 committees for Ngai Tahu. One's FIO, one's the HASNO, and I'm also one of the reps on the Taipōtini Conservation Board. And I've spent one day with HASNO, and we went up to the farms up at Irwell this week, and I was quite impressed by what's happening. But I've got a question in relation to that. Never got the opportunity to ask it there. Is the discharges. What is being done about the discharges for dairy discharges, dairy farm discharges I'm talking about, in terms of the effect that they have on the water. The other one is more to bring attention rather than a question in terms of the Conservation Board. We were at the Franz for 3 days, and it frightens me. I come from down there originally, a little further south, lower down the Makawhio, and I can remember the first helicopter that flew down there, and the whole place came out to have a look at it. now you can't miss them because of the noise. And we have just bought into that, like Ngai Tahu, and the noise around the Friends is absolutely frightening. We were up the valley, and it was a cloudy-ish day, so there wasn't a hell of a lot of activity going on with the helicopters the day we went up the valley. But it's still incredibly noisy, and I want to know whether the Ngai Tahu helicopter company have taken into consideration the effects that has on just the general people who live in that particular area. Just another thing to bring to attention, and it will be out and about soon, is that there was talk about cableways going in the Friends, and they haven't said the Fox at this stage, but certainly in the Friends area, and I think we need to be very careful of that and get up close to it so that it's done properly. So, yeah, that's me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry. I know that with the cable process, we know about it. We will be there pushing it. I can't tell you what the discharge processes are on the farms, but I can tell you this. The licence for the Ngai Tahu farming is that we have to be best practice New Zealand on a continual curve of improvement. We have to look after the environment. I take the farms at Urwell. My understanding, there's actually no rivers running through it. We do have the Waimakariri to the south of it. We have, on one of the farms, put lysometers in, which measure the time it takes nitrates, phosphates to filter down through the soil. So I can't give you the data, but I can give you the undertaking that, as I say, we have to be best practice New Zealand on a continual curve of improvement.
Can I just make one comment from the asked question
Tahu
before
Matu, we'll just get a microphone to you. So.
Yeah, I actually asked this question about the employment out there the other day. I was told, I can't remember exactly what the figures were, but there's around about 70 employed on the farms, that's both the Balmoral and Irwell, and 80% of those are Ngai Tahu staff, Ngai Tahu people, is that correct?
We've got a high level, but also out there we've got the whenua kura. So Ngai Tahu farming has recently bought, I should say, there's an Urwell Lodge, which has around 39 bedrooms, rooms. We've got 44 young people out on the farm being trained. They have to go for qualifications, but they're learning the industry of farming. We've bought the little community so that we can look after them out there, have classrooms on the site. The administration of Ngai Tahu farming, there's a commercial kitchen, commercial dining room. I think there's a football field, a netball field. We're creating a little village out there. But yes, there are high levels of Māori working out there, not all Ngai Tahu, because under the whenua kura, we've opened it to all Māori. And it was earlier this year that I had the honour of attending the intake of 44 rangatahi at Koko Rarata, this year's intake out on the farm under the whenua kura.
Ka pai. Kia ora tā. Thank you very much. We'll come to questions from the floor again soon. Just questions from the live stream, and they're coming in thick and fast. This one's for Ari here, from one Charles Cross Esquire. And the question reads, Ari here, evolution or devolution?
Devolution. I think we will see an extraordinary video very shortly in terms of where we are taking ourselves in these past 20 years. And when I think about devolution, I think about self-determination, and I think about our families and our communities, and I think about the role of Te Runanga Ngai Tahu is about enabling and supporting that sense of self-determination to grow up back in the communities where it once existed, and our role is to enable that to come back to take a place in the community. So you will see very soon the vibrancy and the enthusiasm of Papatipu who have been doing it for themselves over these past 20 years, and as we succeed in the return that is coming out in regards to the distribution, you will see a magnificent change in regards to right through from kaumātua to pepe and whānau doing it for themselves. So the short answer to that is devolution.
Thank you, Odi here. The next question is again from Matua Charlie, for Trevor or Mike, and it reads, a report on Wigram financial outcomes.
Last year's one.
I honestly can't remember the numbers off the top of my head.
300 in, 400 out.
How many?
300 cash in.
300 cash in, 400 cash out. So, but it's been unbelievably successful. I mean, that was meant to be an 18-year project, but because of the thing, it became an 11-year project. So it's blown all our financial projections well out of the water. And if we're interested in the detail, we can go and get the detail and share with them. But it's outperformed anyone's expectations.
Thank you, Mike. Then
Yeah. It is scarily big numbers.
Scarily big numbers. There you go. A very Holdings-like response. Mark, this question's from you, from again Matua Charlie. Pou whenua at Te Parinui Ōwhiti and Kahurake Point. What happened to that program?
There was a concept model put forward under Tahu Pōtiki, but we've held off on it because of the dispute of the boundary. I mean, a chainsaw is quite heavy to carry up, quite easy to carry up to Te Parinui Ōwhiti, and until we've settled on the boundary, we've held off. But I will say, at the last, not this last round of earthquakes that have hit Kaikoura, the earlier one that hit Seddon this year, a good proportion of Te Parinui Ōwhiti is now in the sea. So even if we'd had a pou there, I would have ventured that would have ended up in the sea. It will still be done, but we've only got 2 tribes to finish and come to a conclusion with the disputes over the boundary, being Ngāti Tō Rangatira and Rangitane. All other tribes of Te Tauihu have signed coastline agreements, no issues with Ngai Tahu, no issues with our side of the boundary. And we should, touch wood, in the next 9 months, settle the issue with Tō and Rangitane.
Ka wai. Kia ora tā. Thank you very much. A question from the floor.
Kia ora. I'm the mokopuna of John and Rohini Crofts. My name is Jackie Buchanan. My question's for you, Mark, I think. Excuse my ignorance. I'm wondering if there is going to be any chance of any running of any wānanga for to bring our tamariki back to the marae, and if that would be ongoing, and to help with educating our tamariki on a cultural aspect, and also to bring in whānau ora. Kia ora.
So two questions there on kaupapa for tamariki on our marae, and also whānau ora.
I'm just trying to think of a program that we used to run, and it's now got a new name. So we do take our rangatahi out to the maraes. We pick a region and they'll go out and they... Manuaho, thank you. They are taught the kōrero, the histories, get to know their whānau, get to know their place. That program is ongoing. But if I can say, why can't we just do it at the runanga level? You know? We should be teaching our rangatahi, our whakapapa, our histories at home. And you can apply to the Ngai Tahu Fund for that type of funding to be able to do it at home. But yes, it is ongoing and it's necessary.
Ka wai. And just a question around whānau ora, sorry, Mark. Whānau ora initiatives, I think, possibly, at Papatūānga level? I think that was the second part of the question, was it? Around whānau ora activities to be run at Papatūānga level? Was that the nature of the question, I think?
So we have joined with the tribes of Te Tauihu, and we are the whānau ora commissioning agents, and it's called Te Pūtahitanga. So that's been operating now for close to 3 years. To be honest, the levels of funding aren't big, because basically the government has come up with, or endorsed the concept, but really we have 3 years, and we're in the last year, to prove that we can deliver programs, effective programs, and that we can do it cost effectively. At the end of that 3 year period, through the whānau ora leadership group, we're pushing the government to greatly enhance the amount of funding that comes to it. The results to date, we've been able to show very good success. But there's always resistance within Parliament about funding coming from Māori initiatives. But we are getting there. So yes, whānau water is real, it's on the way. Hopefully next year you will see a big lift in the amount of funding, and the more funding, the more initiatives we can run. But whānau water really is about empowering the whānau. It's not about social service delivery, it's about empowering the whānau to look after themselves. And we have to keep that in mind. People seem to think it's about a social service delivery. It's not. It's about empowering ourselves to look after ourselves. But it definitely is underway, and we are definitely, collectively across the country, tribes are pushing the government to put more and more and more funding into it.
Thank you, Tā. Tēnā koe. Another question from Awarua. This one is for, I think it's for you, Trevor. It asks, is Ngai Tahu Holdings pressuring Ngai Tahu Farming to sell off farmlands and stop developing more?
No. No, I won't be flippant. I think the crux of this question seems to be this tension that's created around, we've got an investment strategy that looks for diversification and this desire that land is really important and needs to be a part of that. And, you know, should we be selling off some of our land? So, you know, and that's a good tension to have, I must say. But let me say, no land will be sold without consulting with Te Ruranga. So we don't sell land. We understand the issues, the sensitivities around it. We have a lot of consultation going on with Te Ruranga at the moment where we're saying this is starting to come to a head as we're executing our investment strategy. We're identifying this issue of land and we need guidance from you. So we've had 2 wānanga so far. We've got another wānanga on the 9th of December, specifically where we will look and go, here's some options for you, but we don't make the decision. Ngai Tahu Holdings doesn't make the decision. Te Ruranga makes the decision.
There was a question here for you, Tāmaka, about whether or not you agree with that, so perhaps some comment.
Please say yes.
Yes, I agree with what Trevor's saying. I mean, when we talked about the lands out of Balmoral and Irwell, so there's ranges of options. You could sell. You could sit on it. You could partner. You could long-term lease. You know, there's all different scenarios to look at, which is what our wānanga are about. So no, none of us are rushing to the agreement, get rid of land at all. We know the importance of land to Ngai Tahu. We are Ngai Tahu. But it is correct and tika that the holdings puts these issues in front of us to come to our resolution. But I do not feel at all that I, as a member of Te Ruranga, are pressured by the holdings to sell lands.
Thank you, Tā. Tēnā koe. We have a couple more questions from the floor. I think Dr. Mere has a question. Tēnā koe te taukita.
Kia ora rā, ngā mihi nui. Kia koe Mark, tū i konei hei kanohi mō rātou o te kāinga e pōkai kaha nei i tēnei wā i rarohi te mahi o papatu anuku. Ia rūau moko no reira kei te mihi atu ki ngā whānau e tāmi ana i raro i te maru o ngā mahi o ngā rū. Hoi anō ka hoki ki a tātou e mihi nui ki a koutou. I tēnei wā, koutou ki muri ngā kaimera hoki. Ko taku pātai he uri au no tū ahureri. Te mea anō hoki, kei te mohi au ki taku whakapapa. No te whakarawa, rāua ko tūtū. Ka whānau mai a pōkene. He teina ia ki a tangata hara. Ko tangata hara te tangata i pū i te pēhi kupe i kaiapoi. Te mea anō hoki, toko rima aku tamariki. Haere rātou katoa ki ngā mautere titi, ki te rapu titi, ki te taho tō rātou paua, race carrot. Ka tai anō ka mate i te rātou tau i hoki ia mai ngā mautere titi. ka tei ka hinga. Nō reira, ai, nō te ao mātauranga ahau, toko rima ku tamariki, I whānau mai I te kōhanga reo. Tino moho tēnei mea te reo me ngā whakapapa. Okay, so I'm just saying that I have tried hard in the world of education to educate my children into their ngai tahutanga. I've had them all on the Martin Bird Islands with their paua to learn that, and the last time I was down there we did a season of birding through the te reo Māori, because I've got 5 children who are all Māori English speakers. But actually my question here is a grave concern that I have around tēnei mea te whanaungatanga, tikanga, rangatiratanga, because I'm sick and tired of people telling our rangatahi and my children that they don't belong here. Sick and tired of it. So recently, an episode, my daughter was on one of those clips up there, and she got told recently that she was not allowed, she was not from here, she's not a descendant of Tuahuriri, and she was not allowed to say anything when she was volunteering out there at Tuahiwi, out at the marae, okay? So that happened to her, and she just mentioned it to me, and I didn't really know how to frame up my question, but that came from a person that was working in the whakapapa unit. So I'm thinking, what's going on here when you've got people that are close to our whakapapa and then they go and do things like that to our rangatahi? Another episode was out at Villa Maria when my daughter wasn't able to speak because she was told she's not Ngai Tahu or Tuahuriri. So, there's a lot of rubbish going on, and how are we working with that for the sake of our, Mark, you talked about having our people registered and, so we know everyone, we know where everyone is. And when we've got a basic fundamental problem, and it is about our whakapapa and our whanaungatanga and the way we treat one another. So I'm very sad to have to stand here today to talk to these issues. But, we want the very best for our tamariki. And so I stand here representing their voices and our rangatahi because of that sense of fragmentation that not in their own, not because of their own inability to stand strong in themselves, but there's just some funny things going on. So with that, I'll leave it to you to respond to this kaupapa. Ngā mihi kia koutou mua koutou taringa whakarongo.
Kia ora.
I cannot and will not discuss the staffing issue. If this is an issue that a staff member has done that, then there is a proper process to follow to raise the issue. But it is not in an open forum like this. It is with the Chief Executive Officer. If there is a staffing issue, if you're saying a staff member has done this. Ko Ngai Tahu, ko au. I am Ngai Tahu. We are all Ngai Tahu. One of the things that I'm the most proudest of, that I use a lot in my public discussions, I can legitimately stand up and say that I have 55,500 cousins. Because that's what we are. I am not going to comment on that. But we are a whānau. And we should all remember that. We are whānau. But I will not discuss a staffing issue in a public forum like this.
Kia ora e tā. Tēnā koe I tō pātai, I tāu kōrero, I tāu whakapua ki taka mai. E mere, tēnā koe. A question here from our audience online. Sorry, actually, I think the audience members here onto it. I think Hedia Moffat. Too much, doing the online and being here in person, too much. So the question is ready here, and it reads, I am a Kaumātua Activities Coordinator and wonder if there are a list of cultural... Oh, sorry.
I just want to respond in a kind manner to Meri. Meri, we understand your whakapapa to home, and I do. I understand Rakiamo, Pōkene, and the connections. Now, we cannot take into account what people say on the side and annoying things, because we simply don't know, and Mark has made that clear. We don't know. But equally, we have to run ourselves at home and be aware of what's going out there, and we appreciate your daughter out there helping. But as you know also, whether it's Tuahiwi, any other marae, the kitchens are always closely run affairs. And it just takes continual presence there for people to know. Now, quite clearly, I could go into the kitchen and be told to leave. And that isn't a reflection on anything but the nature of the cooks. So we understand the relationships. If you do have those issues, Mere, look, it'd be wonderful to have you at home to talk about it. And you'd be welcomed as a descendant of Pōkene, because we understand the whānau there. Thank you.
Tēnā koe, Tamaire, tēnā koe. Ari, if I can come to you with this question again, just around any list of events or cultural things that might be happening around Aotearoa that would be of interest to kaumātua, particularly at Arowhenua, one of my favourite papatū Runanga. But indeed for many kaumātua around the takiwā, if you have a list or something like that that could inform kaumātua of events around the country that might be of use for them or indeed of interest.
Certainly, we can just make those available through either our communications, whether that's online or actually direct kanohi ki te kanohi, and actually through the papatapu runanga, because I'm conscious in terms of kaumātua being able to access information, that we all have our different sort of kumara vine that enables us to get that information. So that's something that we can bring into place, Julian. Kia ora.
Ka pai. Kia ora, Maira. Questions from the floor, please. Oh, yes, just up there. I can't see who that is, but that's okay. Here comes a microphone now. Kia ora.
Ngā mihi koutou whānau whānui. Thank you, Mark, for your wonderful report. However, I did see huge profits and percentages and all sorts of wonderful stuff. I used to be on Te Renanga Ngai Tahu way back in 97. I'm going to ask the same question again. Of Ngai Tahu, I would like a paper drawn up, and I want it timelined, and I would like it immediately. If you notice, our kaumātua grant has stayed there. Has it not? Our kaumātua come first, not last. I'm all for our cultural development and capacity building and wonderful flash maraes and helping our children and giving them all the grants. But please bring our old people up. My father's gone. A whole lot of people aren't here. And when you go to these marae, when I went to Arowhenua, there's so many kaumātua gone. When you go to Tuahiwi, hello, you come home to Moiraki, you'll get about 3. Now, our towers and our powers are my priority, and that is why I want Te Renanga Ngai Tahu to do something about it. Minimum of $500 at once. But it's to go up, you know how they say with the cost of living, with the profit margin.
Okay. So that question, particularly around kaumātua grants, eta.
There is an increase that has been approved for this year's kaumātua grant. 500? Not 500, but it's been increased.
Ka pai?
But
Okay.
there will be an increase this year.
Questions from the floor again, ladies and gentlemen. Before we go back to online, we have another couple of questions from online. Can I get a microphone to Sir Dr. His Honourable Excellency?
Kia ora tātou te hui. Tēnei te mihatu kia koutou e ku o karakia. Koutou o te pai e mihi anō ki te mano tuahuriri o tēnei rā. I have a question really which was sparked by Trevor's report, or he's asked a question about investment. And he said we don't have overseas investments. We own 43% of Whale Watch Kaikoura as a group, and that owns 100% of Whale Watch Australia, which is a substantial business working out of the Gold Coast. But that's what sparked in my mind the thought that when I looked at the plan on the wall, I saw that our Whale Watch investment as a tribe of 43% sits in Ngai Tahu equities and not in Ngai Tahu tourism. If I was to add Ngai Tahu tourism and Whale Watch Kaikoura together, we are the biggest operators of commercial jet boats in New Zealand. We're very significant major tourism operators, but because of historic tensions, which were unpleasant in the extreme, I was at the time a director of Whale Watch Kaikoura, and I saw what was happening with Ngai Tahu Holdings in those times. Historically, we have had a total wall between that brilliantly enterprising and successful company and our tribal operations in tourist terms. And I want to suggest that it's about time we encouraged Ngai Tahu Holdings to make some initiatives towards making the peace with that company and getting back on stream. The past holdings took a nice clip home in the extraction from the Kaikoura Peninsula. Everyone said, isn't it good, in Christchurch or Te Waiponamu House? And the chief executive at that time was patted on the back. But it came at a price of a significant division. And while we're sitting here massaging our ego and our personal puteas and dreams by looking at these numbers on the screen, there's a few bits of history could do with fixing up. And it's one of the marks of Rakatirataka that you take the initiative to be generous and the initiative in making the peace and in healing those sorts of breaches, because it's simply nuts to have the two most successful tourism enterprises currently operating in this country, closely related, tied together by equity, and not even talking to each other. And so I'd like to ask Trevor's response on that, because he's responsible for the moment.
Kia ora, Tipene. I understand some of the history, albeit mostly before my time. We actually have a good relationship now, but I guess the point is it's an informal one. I don't know if I should have missed it, but they actually hosted me at a big rugby game. I attend their AGMs, and we have quite a good operational relationship between our tourism business and Whale Watch Kaikoura, and they've actually drawn on some of our back office corporate functions, trying to leverage them for Whale Watch Kaikoura and stuff. So I think there is that history here. There hasn't been that kind of man-in-the-manner rapprochement, but at an operational day-to-day, us business guys are very pragmatic and get on with life type aspects. There's a lot going on and a good relationship between tourism and Whale Watch Kaikoura. And what I'll do, Quinton, maybe you catch Tipene afterwards and just fill him in on some of that operational stuff. So yeah, operationally great, but take your point around the more formal rapprochement at the more senior level. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Mike.
I'd also like to say, as the nephew of Bill Solomon, Becky, Clayton, Miriama, Kahu, it's not just a one-way street, Tipene. The friction is a two-way street. At a personal level, I was approached about hosting Prince William. I rang Whale Watch, said, look, I've got Prince William coming to the marae. Can we bring him to Whale Watch? Whale Watch has got nothing to do with Ngai Tahu. Keep out of it. So I didn't. So it's a two-way street, not just pointing the finger at holdings.
Ka pai. Ka pai. Kia ora tā. We might take one more question from the floor. We are, funnily enough, again, ladies and gentlemen, very much on time. Although, given the question that's coming now, we that may get altered. But anyway, Auntie Aroha.
Kia ora tātou. Just talking about Whale Watch, and I see Ann Tolley and Stephen Joyce and whoever the hell it is in Parliament decides to help the businesses in Kaikoura, but I don't hear Whale Watch being mentioned, and it's only the smaller businesses in Kaikoura. So, you know, what are we going to do about that? If we're going to be making peace and stuff, can we, Ngai Tahu, say to government, you shall help Whale Watch? They've got a lot of employees that will need help, and so this is, for me, this is our opportunity to say, no, not just the small businesses, you'll help that business as well. Kia ora tātou.
Yeah. They have done what you've said. The fund that they've put out is for businesses with 20 or less staff, and it's the same process that was followed in Christchurch. So for permanent employees, they give a subsidy of each employee of $500 a week. For part-time employees, they give a subsidy of $300. But the same criteria was held in Christchurch. Part of the positives that have happened on the side, I was contacted by the Chief Executive Officer of the Canterbury Chamber of Commerce. Their fund will be transferred to Kaikoura. Now, the biggest issue that's confronting Kaikoura in all of its aspects is about access. And that's the big crunch. So what we've got is, well, what they're believing at the moment, the northern access from Blenheim into Kaikoura, more than a year before they can open that road. From the south, from Christchurch Way into Kaikoura, at least 3 months before we can get in that way. You have got access now, the inland road is opened, and I understand that it'll be open to the public on Monday, but it will be very much dictated on weather. Because you've had so many slips through the inland road, and it's quite a narrow stretch of road, any wet weather, they're going to close it. So the biggest thing we can do is, and the government's already started on this, we can't let what happened in the Christchurch earthquake. What appeared overseas was that the whole of New Zealand was a risk, and it completely dried up tourism. We need to be starting to advertise soon that there is still access into Kaikoura. But do we have the infrastructure in place yet that can house visitors? I don't know. And until all of the assessments are done, we don't actually know. So like Christchurch, there is going to be a downtime, and it could be up to a year. That's a reality. But of course, we are working with our community, and of course we will work with Whale Watch. But that subsidy, that's set. There's not much we can do, but we can keep lobbying for help.
Ka pai. Kia ora tā. Thank you. We've got one final question from Papaku. Before I do that, Papaku, I've just got a couple of pānui. For those who haven't registered at the Hui here, the registration is over by the Cup of Tea station over there. We've got a couple of presentations after this, but if you can register, the hard copy is over there at the Cup of Tea station. So please register, whānau, so we know that you were here. Finally, we have someone who has come in from Perth, all the way from Perth. Her name is Jenna Love. She is at an international trade fair in Perth at the moment. She is a jeweller, and she is auctioning a pair of valuable rings, the 100% of proceeds from which will be going to Takahanga Marae via the Give a Little page. So if you go on Trade Me, have a look for Jenna Love. She has the rings there. They look wonderful. I won't read out the whole listing number, but Jenna Love on Trade Me. If you can support her auction, all the proceeds will be going to the Tahanga Marae. Give a little page, and if you don't know about that page, go on to Give a Little Tahanga Marae, and you'll find that there. I've got another question. Sorry, before I go to Papaku, just to Trevor and Mike, related to the farming issue that was raised earlier. If whānau members have some concerns or queries just around farms and particular issues raised, who would they raise those concerns with?
Andrew Priest, the Chief Executive, and Andrew's here, so if there's anyone here who's got a concern, please, he'll be more than happy to.
Ka pai. Okay, so Andrew's here, and those who are here, or indeed via email, andrew.priest@ngaitahu.iwi.nz is his email address. Okay, Papaku, hei a koe te pātai whakamutunga tēnā koe.
Kia ora no tātou. I must commend the team for sharing their skills and how they produce it. My concern is one of our strongest marketing face of Ngai Tahu is here. What I want to know, and my question is brief, what are we going to do about this fella? So I was at the table and I saw them there and I thought, I hope they're trying to work this thing out. So that's my parte to the table.
Kia ora.
What are they going to do with this fella?
Kia ora, Papa.
You know, externally, apart from Ngai Tahu, Mark is Ngai Tahu to all other iwi, to governments, and all their ministries. What are we going to do about it? Kei a tātou tērā.
Kia ora I tō pātai. Papaku, we are going to answer that question and to transition to the next part of the open forum. Tā Mark will close the session with a couple of words that might help answer the query you've just made, Papaku. Tā Mark, if we can just transition the lectern and the microphone up to the stage, we'll ask you to close down the open session. Thank you so much to those of you who raised questions from the floor. Thank you those of you who participated via the live stream. We appreciate your participation and your questions. Thank you to the leadership team. If you just want to transition across, bring your chairs across to the front, that's fine. And then can I now pass over to the kaiwhakahaere, o te runanga o Ngai Tahu, to Tā Mark to close the open forum and to say a few words at the kaiwhakahaere. Tā Mark, tēnā koe.
Tēnā tātou te whānau. It has been known since March of this year, when I took the decision to not stand again to be the representative for Kaikoura, that I would not be able to continue in my role as the kaiwhakahaere. While not an easy decision to make, I made the announcement when I did, because I wanted to give Te Runanga the time to think about who my replacement might be and how to have a smooth transition. When I step down, it will mark the first time in around 70 years that there will not be a Solomon on the main government entity of Ngai Tahu. My grandfather, Rangi Solomon, was elected to the Māori Trust Board and was a member near its inception and was a member until his passing in 1977. Next in line was Wiremu Tahaere Solomon. While some of you mightn't remember Wiremu Tahaere, I'm sure you'll all remember Uncle Bill. The lessons I learned from these men who went before me continue to inspire me and to give me hope for the future of my people, Ngai Tahu. In the last week, I have watched the people of my home marae Takahanga and the community of Kaikoura put aside all of our differences and rise to the challenge of coping with a natural disaster unprecedented in our recent history in this region. It created similar challenges to the Canterbury earthquakes, but with those experiences behind us, we knew what would be needed. Uncle Bill would have been proud of our marae and our people. These events usually bring out the best in people. Right from the beginning, just an hour after the first earthquake struck at 2 minutes past midnight, Takamahanga Marae opened its doors to support whānau and the local community. It went on to act as a welfare centre, and it supported and fed a large number of people from the community and from overseas. This was despite almost everyone from the Hokainga having experienced significant damage to their own whare. I tautoko all the whānau and the community of Kaikoura who have responded so generously to support each other, as well as tourists and neighbours over the first few days. When the roads are open and the helicopters have gone, the real recovery will begin. We learned some valuable lessons from the Canterbury earthquakes, and I am thrilled at how the staff of Turunanga, led by our senior management team, swung into action. It is not only our office staff, but staff from across the group, Ngai Tahu Holdings, tourism, property, farming and seafood. I am sure that they will be there for the long haul as we get the Kaikoura region back on its feet and help every single whānau to rebuild their lives and their homes. We will continue to work with all the external agencies involved, and we are immensely grateful for all of the assistance that has been offered from all parts of the motu. In my last few months as kaiwhakahaere, Turunanga has been taking some time to address governance issues and the matters of leaks to the media. In March of this year, I recommended a range of governance changes to improve the openness, transparency and accountability of Turunanga. I am pleased to report that the majority of these proposals were adopted by Turunanga. While some governance changes are still a work in progress, such as the form and function of the committees, I am heartened by the professionalism and drive for accountability by the table as a whole. The final report back on the leaks and improper dealing with confidential information will be presented to Turunanga at a meeting in early December. I have every confidence that Turunanga will make a clear statement that the improper treatment of confidential information will not be tolerated. I am immensely proud of what Ngai Tahu has become and has done since the bringing home of the settlement by Tipani's generation. 170 million to 1.4 billion. Te pūtea whakamahi, te pūtea tautoko, ko tahi mana kaika, whai rawa, he toki ki te rika, whenua kura, Ngai Tahu Fund, our mahi in the natural environment, our mahi in mātauranga, and our influence. It is a true tribute to those who went before and a beacon for those who will come after. I have a lot of opportunities ahead of me. I will be still involved in Te Ao Māori. I do wish to become more and more involved in the whānau violence and sexual abuse arena, because to me it is one of the biggest cancers of this society, and especially against our women, our Māori women. Lastly, as this is almost certainly my final address to the members of Ngai Tahu Whānui, before I stand down as kaiwhakahaere, let me just simply say, thank you, Ngai Tahu. Thank you for the honour and privilege of allowing me to serve our people in this role for the past 18 years. Kia ora tātou te whānau.
Kia
My final day will be the day that Te Rūnanga o Kaikoura replaces me with their new representative. I cannot give a date, but I will not step aside and leave Ngāti Kuri of Kaikoura with no one at the table until they replace me. But that will be my final day. Kia ora tātou te whānau. Again, it has been an absolute honour and privilege.
I've got a question, Mark. Why the chair has to be appointed by the table? Why is not the chair of this Rūnanga voted on by the whole membership?
The chair, the nominations for the role of kai whakahaere, deputy kai whakahaere, does not come from the table. The nominations for the position of kai whakahaere, deputy kai whakahaere, come from the Papatipu Rūnanga. All that happens at the Tront table is that we get to vote in an open show of hands, but the nominations come from the Papatipu Rūnanga.
E kara tā tēnā koe. Ladies and gentlemen, can I get a round of applause, please, for the kai whakahaere Te Rūnanga Ngai Tahu, tā Mark Solomon. We now move into the presentations for Hui Atou this year. And as many of you will know, and many of you participated in, this year there was a kaupapa called the Papatipu Rūnanga Aspirations Group presentations that were held here in Te Whare o Te Waipounamu over 2 months, in August and September. Could you please make welcome now, really a driving force behind this kaupapa that is now being called O Ahi O Ora. Would you please make welcome the Deputy Kai Whakahaere o Te Rūnanga Ngai Tahu, Lisa Tumahai. Lisa, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ka pai. Kia ora. So the refresh of what was known as the PRAG process, now called Oahi O Ora. 15 Papatipu Rūnanga presented to Te Rūnanga their aspirations for the next 3 years. And it was a wonderful hui that everyone enjoyed, being able to see the achievements of Papatipu Rūnanga in the last 20 years, but also what their aspirations are for the next 3 years. The key priorities identified in 2010, marae development, whānau,
capacity building, economic development, cultural development, environmental, runanga capacity, restoration and research have been identified as still the key priority areas. But what the Papatipu are saying, that there are some slight differences in their expectations and activities. So we're going to play the video right now, which encapsulates the 15 Papatipu that have presented. Kia ora.
For us, we've found that we've learnt resilience. We've learnt the meaning of patience. We've learnt that it's not just about the end game that's important. It's about empowering our hapu and our individuals to move towards their goals with knowledge and confidence. It's not all about being there, it's also about the journey and how we do that. So for us, it's about capacity building. It's a priority, and we believe it goes hand in hand with the whānau development po. We want capacity in people, so we need to grow training programs, we want internships, mentoring, and professional development, and focus on succession planning.
We had a fascinating outcome October the 18th last year when we rezoned the pā. We didn't want papakāinga status because we believe everyone should have title to their land, subdivision rights. So Tuahiwi now has subdivision rights back in Tuahiwi, but those rights only belong to us. Pākehā don't have those rights, which is really quite important because what it means, ultimately, our people will end up owning the pā again. Affordable housing in Tuahiwi is achievable. And the reason why we want to get that running is because we really want to support Rawapiki and the other Peninsula Kāinga to do the same thing, which is what the Kahui Kahukura is doing. Now, the important point about getting those houses there is really our runinga. Everyone has ideas in Tuahiwi, you know that. So our job is really just to support everyone. So water, affordable housing, education is important to us and it's important to everyone. Health is important.
Knowledge transference, historical marae history and so on, and that's important to us as everybody else is, and is transferring that knowledge on from your culture to keep going, our young people, to keep having those wānanga that comes up, and our cultural wānangas that will always be a part of us, that we always want to do.
Just one of the key things is building capacity and getting connection. We just haven't got enough of the whānau connecting, and succession planning, that sort of thing.
We're here actually to talk about Papatipu Runanga aspirations, and I guess I'd just like to start by saying that Otago is here to actually talk about our Papatipu Runanga expectations. And it's part of our expectations that we have, and I guess that you need that to sit behind your aspirations, or else we dream. And there are certain expectations that we have as Papatipu Runanga about how we're going to work and how we expect to work alongside Te Runanga o Ngai Tahu. 4 really key points. And I didn't make these up, I've borrowed these from someone else. And the 4 key points are around the fact that sovereignty matters, culture matters, institutions matter, that's our institutions locally, and leadership matters. But if sovereignty, if rangatiratanga is important to us, we actually have to start acting like we have got that and stop looking either to government or to the centre to do things for us. So in 12 months' time, we will own a property that will be worth over $2 million. Everything's going to be paid for. We will have GP services, dental services, mental health services, mobile nurses, social workers, all that down there.
Our dream, our moemoia,
is have a vibrant, energised, dynamic, multi-generation community based around the marae and the Rūnaka that is strongly interactive in its local community and environment, as well as in the regional and tribal communities. It will also be a welcoming place for whānau who live away from Pukaraki and Karatani. We want to maximise the power of the brand, Ngai Tahu brand, for our benefit. Full stop.
So in terms of Tront, we think at Moiraki we're really ready to get moving on the next stage and recognising that there's a pathway of moving from distribution to devolution. So our kōrero is that for 2016, we've now got the goal set on how we're going to work with Tront to change the model. I guess, though, what we really are interested in is synergy between current state of investment and Rūnanga aspiration, and what's the first step that can be done about that on a pathway from distribution to devolution.
The whānau whānui of Waihao want to utilise knowledge and expertise in our rūnanga, to cater to the needs and wants of our people, to acknowledge our kaumātua and enable funding and resources for their benefit, to grow our people. Belonging to the Waihao whānau is a positive contribution to wellbeing and identity.
Nurturing our people through generations, guardians of the environment we live in, progressing our future locally and globally, because it's always going to be about world domination whāro whenua. The answer is a consolidated Rūnaka balance sheet with shareholder equity 20 to 25 mil is an appropriate short-term goal within the next 5 years. A dedicated Rūnanga Ngai Tahu plan for increased capacity and capability at hapu level.
Above all, it's our mahi kai, our relationship to that, how we get on with the development and reshaping of the whole kaupapa around Te Waituna, our tio. These are at the heart of who we are and what we are as Awurua.
Succession has become very important. We are very fortunate here that we have a generation just below us ready to step up, some of whom have begun to step into the leadership roles in the Rūnanga, which is just excellent. As an older person, I am heartened by that. We've identified that the reo has to be one of our key priorities leading into the future. If we want to maintain who we are as a people, then our language has to be at the base of it and has to be strong enough to carry us through.
We want Bluff to be, I won't say Awurua owned, but Ngai Tahu owned. So that's our aspiration.
Next stage is I love our Rūnanga to start doing some bigger joint ventures together. That's where I love to see, because individually we're fantastic, but together we will take over the world.
If we involve rangatahi more by doing activities or running programs for them, then it would help the rangatahi come into the Rūnanga more.
I think we need more infrastructure out there. So we are very remote, so we need better roading, better sewage, things like that, so that we can have more housing out there and more small businesses, so we can bring more whānau home. Education's the key to everything, and if you're well educated, then you're going to be more likely to have your own home and have better health outcomes.
We want to change the Ngai Tahu Pounamu Vesting Act.
We want ownership of Pounamu, which rightly belongs in the takiwā of Te Taipotini. So in the future, we would expect, and we do want that returned to our people. We also want the awa we live on and around, and the ownership of the Waitaki Reserve, all restored to the descendants of Waiwai and Pihoka. Kia ora.
And we know that the only way that we can make a change and a difference in the health arena is to actually take control of that and provide services that are accessible, wonderful services that are accessible for our whānau. And that might mean Māori delivery, or it might actually mean that we make sure that the delivery that they receive from providers that are general actually suit and look after our whānau. So we'll look at that in the combined way. So overall, we aspire to control the tahutahi, share in the Pounamu market, from extracting to retailing, and together with Ngāti Waiwai to make Potini Ngai Tahu the dominant player in the Pounamu industry.
So we've got papakainga status back on the whole reserve, so that gives us the ability to buy our land back, but then convert it into Māori title and then and create papakainga on it. So that's a positive. We've worked on that, we've talked about it for a long time, and now we've kind of seen some of those achievements. And of course the cultural mapping, once again working with Ngai Tahu, but also working with our whānau, our kaumātua, making sure that those place names are recorded and the pūrākau and the history with them for us and the generations after us.
I'm of the next generation, and I want to ensure that our marae is safe. That we have a safe environment and that we are protecting our young. One great aspiration for me is that when I go to my runaka hui, our chair will get up and state that we're going to start our hui in te reo Māori.
Our culture must permeate and penetrate the institutions of influence that have continually denied us our rights. Councils, community boards, PPTAs, industry bodies, community trusts, chambers of commerce and government are all institutes of influence who have long denied our right to participate at the direct peril of our culture. Our culture at present must re-establish as a visible, valued contributor to the economy and the culture of Akarua and the wider Banks Peninsula. Therefore, we aspire to be a key influencer within our own takiwā. We aspire to penetrate these institutions of influence as a means to secure the ongoing growth of cultural identity and our visual presence within our landscapes.
So on behalf of Te Runanga, I'd like to congratulate the 15 Papatipu Runanga that have presented to us. It's, as you can see, it's exciting, some wonderful initiatives. An apology to Kaikaurarata. Unfortunately, there were technical issues with the recording of Kaikaurarata's presentation, which is you'd like that little bit replayed. But Kaikaurarata, as you all know, the centre of the universe, had a wonderful aspiration of their aquaculture, agriculture, building their hapu, and being a strong player within the economy in that sector. So, thank you. Wonderful. There are 3 Papatipu Runanga still to present to Te Runanga to give us guidance in the annual planning round next year, and we hope that we can have that all hopefully done and dusted by around February, hopefully. So the changes, the shifts in the thinking that will change probably our response in the activity, as you can see here, and these were some of the main shifts. Status quo to a significant appetite for change, and that aspirational dreaming to expectations. Some of the other shifts were moving from centrally led programs to locally, regionally led programs. Limited pūtea available to enhanced pūtea. And we've responded extremely well to this question around pūtea over the last 4 years with the gradual increases in whakamahi. central accountability and program design to local accountability and locally designed initiatives. The Ngai Tahu brand, that regionally we can all leverage off the Ngai Tahu brand, but creating our own brands, and that move away from the current distribution model of a third, a third, a third, to the design of a new model with a reduced or a capped central approach to an gradual increase to Ngai Tahu Whānui individual and to our marae and Papatipu Runanga. So that's a piece of work Te Runanga will be starting our discussions on in our devolution wānanga, which will be in the new year. Next. One of the other key themes that came through was how do we maintain ahi kā? And so there were strong themes across a number of the runanga about our local customs, local practices, and how we keep those alive with an ageing population of our kaumātua and our people that hold that knowledge. So, and particularly in our remote rural marae. So there's a need to not have a one-size-fits-all approach in our cultural strategy, but rather tailored solutions that are going to meet each of those 18 marae. And then how we can engage and facilitate the engagement and participation of more of our whānau back into the marae, whether that's through virtual initiatives, and some of our marae have those IT issues in terms of still being on a bit of copper wire or needing to satellite in, like Ōtākau, beam in from above. So how do we support our papatipu with some of those challenges that are challenges whānau who live away from home all over the world? How do we get their participation and engagement enabled? But also, how do we bring the whānau that actually live home? And particularly our younger generations. Everybody sent a signal around our rangatahi and our younger generations in terms of participation and engagement. Another key theme was how do we establish land ownership and usage rights? So that was about how can Te Runanga support and advocating for change and reversing some of those legislative barriers. How can we have access to housing and local facilities as hubs, papakainga housing, affordable housing? These were key themes that came through from a number of runanga that will be on our list of when we start thinking about our responses to these areas. How do we build local and regional economies? Again, things like cultural tourism, mahinga kai, the commercialisation of some of our mahinga kai, our taonga assets, and then enabling business joint venture opportunities for papatipu and holding corporation or other. What local investments should be made, these were critical to the relationships of papatipu, so that we're building the relationship directly. Relationships are being built directly with papatipu, but there is always the example where organisations will come directly to the corporate structure. So how do we ensure the branding and we build those relationships with the key papatipu runanga? How do we rebuild mana and well-being? So how can tino rangatiratanga be facilitated to enable local relationships, leadership and accountability, including kaitiakitanga? So Te Runanga, through a number of its strategies, will have a look at this to see whether the existing programs we have are meeting the mark or is there something different that we need to do. Supporting papatipu runanga to continue to build their kaitiaki responsibilities in terms of our local environment. So our role in terms of protection and preservation, particularly with our papatipu who are low in numbers on the ground. Rangatahi development was a key one across most of the runanga. So we have to look at the suite of programs that we do have available, that you can access that information by going into the tribal website. And there are a number of programs available, but how do we do things to grow that participation and engagement at a local level? So the final one is the model. So where to from now? And that big discussion around what is devolution, evolution or devolution, and the equity the equity and equality issue that seems to be identified by Papatipu. So we've talked about things like we have the Ngai Tahu Fund, the Marae Development Fund. The Marae Development Fund is an equitable funding distribution model. Everybody gets access to $1 million across the 18. We've been able to increase that in our funding rounds recently, and so that the ability to meet that quicker is happening. But then we get to the equality issue, and have we got the maturity as runanga to agree to an equality model? So we may have different things to move away from that. We may have different levels of activity, different population groups that we're supporting, which requires a stronger investment in different areas. Should we hold back one area because of the speed of another? And so that is a challenge. That's something that we'll have to grapple with. But how do we also support our Papatipu that have very small people living home and a less ability to have the growth that we're seeing in some of the other regions? Huge challenge, and that's something that we're going to have to consider in our wānanga around this evolution and devolution process. So with that in tow, I'm finished, and thank you again to all of those that have participated. We look forward to finishing off the next 3, and hopefully in the new year, the new planning round, we have some more firmed up responses to you all of what we're going to do for the next 3 years with this information that you've kindly shared with us. So, kia ora koutou.
E te kaiwhakaare tuarua Lisa tēnā koe, and again endorsing the sentiments to those Papatipu Rūranga who have participated in the Rūranga Aspirations exercise, or indeed in Oahi O Ora, and to the 3 remaining Papatipu Rūranga who will participate in that process next year. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou. We now turn, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting part of the agenda, and to introduce this part of our program for Hui Atou 2016, could I please make way for my boss, for the CEO of Te Rūranga Ngai Tahu, Arihia Bennett, who will introduce the rangatahi section of Hui Atou 2016. Arihia tēnā koe. Ko mai te paki e tiwi.
Oh, kia ora anō. This brings us to quite an exciting part of today. And I have on stage with me somebody who's really just going to take this over and actually take it away on our behalf. And the part that we're going to focus on this at this time is actually about our rangatahi development. We're really mindful that of our demographics, of our 55,000, we actually have 45% of our 55,000 who are actually under the age of 15. So if we think about our planning in terms of more tātou and for our future, we think about actually how we're going to be taking care of probably older ones like me at home, and actually thinking about how our young people are going to have a role in the leadership back at home, back in organisations such as this, if it exists, at the Rūnanga, and out in the bigger world. We're conscious and we're mindful that we're globalising very rapidly. We're in a rapid age of technology. From the Gen Y to the millennials, they are bringing and they're coming at us really fast with both intelligent, unique and future-thinking ideas, and they are going to be taking the leadership forward. I'm delighted that Te Rūnanga has responded in this past 18 months, 2 years, and starting to ramp up its response in meeting those needs of those young people and all of those children, those tamariki, and now the pepe, to actually find their pathway, their uniqueness and their sense of identity in being Ngai Tahu, but also starting to take a place in the leadership, whether that's within their families or their communities or back on their marae. So I've invited today Alex Solomon, who's actually in the spirit of talking to one Chief Executive Officer to future Chief Executive Officers either in an organisation like this or at home, and I've actually invited Alex to lead us through this kaupapa. So that's all you're going to hear from me today, so sit back and enjoy this. Kia ora, and over to you, Alex. Kia ora.
Tēnā hoki tātou, I runga I ngā āhuatanga o te wā. Ko Alex Solomon tōku ingoa, he uri tēnei no Kāti Huirapa, no Kaitua Huriri anō hoki. Nā reira, ai, mihi ana ki a koutou katoa. Hi everybody, my name's Alex. I'm from Ngai Tahu Hui and Ngai Tahu Hui. And today I'm going to be talking a wee bit actually about my holidays that just went a few weeks ago. So on the first week of the holidays, I was lucky enough to go on a rangatahi a hikoi, an initiative called Te Ara Whakatipu. Now, for those of us that might not know what Te Ara Whakatipu is, it's pretty much a whole week where a group of rangatahi get to go bush, really. So on the first day, we all met up downstairs, here downstairs, and we got in a van and we drove for about 10 hours to our accommodation, which was just outside of Manapouri, which is down in Fiordland. And we stayed there for the first night, and there we met the group of rangatahi that we were going to be spending the rest of the week with. That day/night was a bit awkward because we didn't really know each other or who we were. But yeah, so we all stayed there for the night, and then we got up early. We got back in the vans, and then we drove out to the Hollywood Valley track, which is again in Fiordland, and it's about a 6-hour walk through the dense bush and across rivers and over valleys and all that sort of thing. So firstly, we got out of the vans, we got our packs on, and we pretty much just started walking. And our guide, Kahu, he's, I'd say, close to a tohunga in all things to do with the ngahere. So it was his job to teach us about all the sort of plants and the native animals that were in the bush. And I actually learned quite a lot. We all learned quite a lot about our ngahere on that walk. All the things you could eat and you couldn't eat, and the water you could drink and couldn't drink, and all the different types of rako, which for me personally, I'm a wee bit interested in that sort of thing. So that was really, really cool for me. So we finished our walk and we got on a boat, and we had about a 20-minute boat ride across Whakatipu Waitai, the lake that was there, to our accommodation. Now I thought our accommodation in the bush was sort of going to be a ruggedy old shack, but it was actually more like a 5-star lodge. So yeah, I was a bit surprised by that. So we got there and we got changed out of our wet clothes and stuff, and we had dinner. And one of the great things that they did on Te Ara Whakatipu, I like to call them feel-good sessions, because we were all sitting at the table round in a circle, and our leaders, Kahu, and that they'd ask us a question along the lines of, if you're a superhero, what would your powers be? So I found those activities really enjoyable, and it was quite a good activity to break the ice as well for us awkward rangatahi that didn't really know each other. So those were really good, really fun actually. So we finished up our dinner and we went to bed. And the next day, and over the next few days, we went around the takiwa, learning about again all the rako, and we went to a podocarp forest, if I remember rightly, and there were trees there that were about 2,000 years old, and they were massive, they were huge. And I really enjoyed that, especially because we got to learn about not just the scientific sort of nature and names of these trees, but also the Māori worldview and ideas about these trees. And it was really interesting to see how they linked up and how they contrasted. So yeah, and that was pretty much us for the rest of the week. We also went to an old pā out in Fiordland, and the chief for that pā, if I remember rightly, was called Tūtoko. So that was quite interesting as well. I didn't actually think that anyone really lived in Fiordland. I thought it was a bit too cold and a bit too wet, but obviously not. So yeah, that was really interesting, and we got to swim in the river, which was very cold, and we got to have bonfires and roast marshmallows and all that sort of thing. But on our last night, we went around the table again and had a couple more questions, and we sort of talked about how we felt about the trip and sort of a reflection. And from all the responses that I heard from the rangatahi that were there, it was almost as if they'd learned something about themselves that they didn't really know they had. And I think for me, that's amazing. I mean, where else can you go to learn things about yourself within a Māori-based environment other than those sort of wānanga? So I really enjoyed Te Ara Whakatipu. And we didn't sort of get to fly out of the valley or anything. We had to walk all the way back up the track on the last day, which was pretty horrible because it was a bit rainy and we were all tired. But we all sort of felt a sense of achievement when we did finish, and that was really great. So we hopped back in the van and went back to our accommodation, and there we stayed for the final night. We had sort of a prize-giving graduation sort of thing. And then the next day we sort of popped off home for another 10 hours. But me and another of my friends, we didn't actually go home that day. We went on a bus from Te Anau all the way to Dunedin, where we went straight to another wānanga that had been set up by Kotahi Mano Kaika, and that was the Kura Reo Rangatahi. So we were pretty tired already, just jumping straight into another wānanga. Now, Kura Reo Rangatahi, it's like the Kura Reo courses that KMK sets up at the start of the year, except obviously it's based around rangatahi. So there was a real focus there. We sort of did the same thing as Te Ara Whakatipu, except we're in a different sort of takiwā. We went out to see old pā sites and got to learn a lot of the kōrero about those, which for me and for all the other rangatahi that I spoke to was actually really cool. It was really cool. So yeah, there's actually a lot of kōrero that I didn't know around that area, and again, that for me is just amazing to learn something that I didn't know, but that's been there for thousands of years. So yeah, and we also did other activities. We sort of had a wee go at Maurako, and I think we did some weaving while we were on Kura Reo Rangatahi. But yeah, I really liked the aspect that it was based around te reo. So yeah, and after Kura Reo Rangatahi, there was another wānanga in Puketeraki called Manawa Hou. I think Matua Mark was talking about that before. Now, me and my friend didn't go to that because we were i te ngenge rawatu, we were really tired, so we just went straight home. But Manawa Hou, I suppose, I've been on it a couple of times before, so I'll sort of try and sum it up. For me, I suppose it's a leadership program for rangatahi. Sort of the same idea as Te Ara Whakatipu and Kura Reo Rangatahi, getting rangatahi together, bonding sort of experience, learning about the takiwā that course would be set in, and just learning about our culture, really, and all the things that it entails and that it has to offer. So that's Manawa Hou. It's not necessarily going out into the bush for a whole week or immersing into the reo. It's more based on the actual leadership component of those wānanga, and I like the contrast actually between Manawa Hou, Kura Reo and Te Ara Whakatipu in terms of the different aspects they bring. So yeah, that was my holiday. It was pretty busy. I didn't get much sleep or much rest out of that holiday, but that's okay. Immersing myself in what Ngai Tahu Hui has to offer for rangatahi. So yeah, I'm just going to talk a wee bit now about maybe some things that might be good for the future in terms of rangatahi development. And for me, personally, and I've asked a couple of other rangatahi about this, I think, the base for us as an iwi and for everything we do is tō tātou nei reo Māori, it's our reo Māori. And I think if we lose our reo, we're going to lose everything. So I think maybe just a challenge to us all and to all rangatahi as well to maybe hiki i te manuka, pick up the challenge and try and immerse yourself in te reo Māori, because I think that's where it's at for us at the moment. I know when I started learning te reo Māori a couple of years ago, it was really scary and I sort of didn't want to do it. Dad sort of pushed me into it. My dad's Darren Solomon, if you don't know. So yeah, he's got a big boot. Anyway, so yeah, it was quite scary for me, but after you get over those few hurdles of maybe whakamā and those sort of things, it actually becomes fun, and it becomes a thing that you can involve yourself in and your family, and you know that by learning our reo, that ke te hapa i ngā tikanga o mua, you're sort of uplifting our tikanga of the past and what we had, and hopefully, for me, what I like to see in the future is just te reo Māori everywhere, really. It comes as second nature. Our kids know it better than we do, and so we can still uphold those tikanga, because I think for us, te reo Māori is a base for everything that we do, be it our tikanga, be it holdings or our company, Te Runanga o Ngai Tahu. I think that, like I said, if we lose our reo, we're going to lose everything. And I think Ko Tahi Mano Kaika's doing a very good job at upholding those things, but I don't think e harei te mea he pai kia waiho mā te tokoiti, te reo we whakaora. I think it's for us all to uplift. So KMK is there as a tool for us to grasp and to use, to learn once again what is rightfully ours, tō tātou nei reo Māori. And I think if I was to put it into maybe a metaphor, so our reo is the whāinga, is the goal, our waka would be KMK, and ko tātou katoa, ko ngā Ngai Tahu Hui, we're the people that have to row our waka to our whāinga, which is te reo Māori. Nā reira, e mihi ana kia tātou katoa e hapa ana i te reo, he wero tonu kia koutou kāre anō kia ruku i te reo Māori, engari kia kaha tātou katoa. Now, I would like to turn to a little video that we have prepared of another couple of rangatahi, ko Ranui Ellison, James Buchanan, rātou ko Sean Bragg. And these rangatahi are doing things that they love to do with the help of Ngai Tahu, of Te Runanga o Ngai Tahu. So, without further ado, ka huri ki te kiriata.
I'm doing the Ngai Tahu internship, pretty much the first one to do this current program, but it goes for 2 years, and what I do is I spend 3 or 4 months at a time within the different teams around Toronto and kind of just help out where I can, pick up lots of new skills and yeah, make lots of connections with people, so it's pretty cool.
Kia ora te whānau, I'm James and I'm in my first year training at Arts Ed in London, one of Europe's most prestigious performance academies.
I admit to feeling really sad to let him go, but he has to go. He has to go and spread his wings to the other side of the world where the calibre of tuition and the history of the kind of performing, musical theatre performing that he wants to do is well established. And so he's like with the creme de la creme, really.
E rere kawana ngā mihi mata kui kui kia koutou. He uri tēnei noa tākou ko Ranui aho. I'm currently living in Shanghai as part of the Agri-Huaka Scholarship, which enables me to study Mandarin at one of the best universities in China. Support-wise, all of my fees, tuition, insurance and return flights are covered, along with a monthly allowance which enables me to survive here in China. But financial support aside, being abroad with a purpose other than an exchange or a Chinese government scholarship adds an extra topic of conversation, point of difference and layer of motivation to my studies here in Shanghai.
It's really amazing to get support from the iwi as well, because it kind of validates. It's a huge, because you know, as Māori we gather identity from each other. When another validates you, another Māori or another iwi or rohe or anything, and because Ngai Tahu is a body of many descendants of different rohe of the whenua, of all sorts of tangata whenua, when you get validated by them in terms of we want to support you, we believe in you, and of course they do above and beyond a financial contribution, but when you get it in something that is manifested as a physical contribution to you, it goes a long way in you feeling supported and like the iwi's got your back.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky, really. I've learnt quite a lot in a pretty short amount of time. Like some of the stuff I've done, I've written reports, submissions, I've produced ads, I've made an app, managed websites, gone travelling and run meetings and stuff. So the big thing for me is I've gained a lot of confidence just through working at Toronto and working with all the different teams and just having to kind of give things a crack, because that's what this job's all about, I guess.
I consider Chinese to be such a huge asset, and this year to be just the beginning of a lifelong language commitment. There's no way I'm going to let everything I've gained and worked so hard for this year go to waste.
I'd like to get a degree eventually. I'm not 100% sure on what that would be in, but environmental space, that's something I'm kind of interested in, and the cultural mapping work I did with at Toronto is really exciting, and it's quite varied work, and it's something I wouldn't mind having a crack at again.
I would really like to, just in order, I'd really like to obviously finish kura, get my tohu, and then with that I hope that I go into the West End to work. From the West End I hope to go to Broadway, and that's kind of that's the final goal. I haven't really thought about up and beyond that, so if I ever make it to Broadway I'd be pretty stoked with myself. But over the last few months it's been brewing that I've been working here in Christchurch, just working with some tauira and taiwahi and seeing the kind of natural passion that our young rangatahi have for any kind of performing. So it's kind of brewing in my head that Ngai Tahu needs a school for performing arts. So kapahaka, dance, ballet, hip-hop, drama, everything, absolutely everything.
He rawe tērā, ki te kite i ngā rangatahi e whai anau tā rātou e wawata nei, I runga anō i te tautoko o tō tātou nei iwi. E mihi ana. I tēnei wā, I'm going to turn now to koutou o te pōkai ao. Now, these rangatahi spent some time over in the USA at Stanford and Silicon Valley. Without further ado, ka huri ki a koutou. Nā reira, hara mai.
Akei o tākau tai tōku kura tōku mana. Akei ngā matua iwi o muapukoro he hakakana te takoto. Ako te atua o tai hukei runga. Ako kātirua hiki ke ona rekereke. Akei puke kura tū watawata. Te paia ko te riri, te kawa o tai aroa. Aora ki keo nganei au, tihe i tōku kai tahutaka. Ko te wehi tuatahi ki ai hoa ngā mana mōna haka piripiri mai nei a tātou i tēnei o ngā haura. Ha tērā pohu tukawa ka mōeri ki runga he pai whakamahara mo a kutau ka hurangi, kua riro. Pira tarata mai rā koutou i te korenga, ai te rokiroki o te pō. Kōreko mai rā koutou i ngā mahara moa ke tonu atu. Hea kura pō, moi mai rā koutou. Kia tātou mā, te hunga oroa, ko whakarau i ka mai nei, i raro, i te marumarutanga, o te whare o te waipaunamu, a tēnā rā tātou katoa. Ake aku mō rehu, aku i ka whiro, a paua mā, taua mā, a te whakarangatira mai nei i tā tātou kaupapa, a tēnā rā wātu koutou. A me ki ko te whakaaro nui, kia rātou mā, o takahanga marae, o kai koura, a e pākino nei ki te ringa kaha o Ruaumoko. Ako ngā whakamānawa kia rātou i tēnei o ngā wā pauri, o ngā wā taumaha. A ke timatake, ngā kōrero mō Amerika. Hara mai te tahi āhua. Eki ko taku tino I wainga nui i ngā kai kōrero no Amerika, ko tahi noi ho te kai kōrero i tino Pākehā hau, ko Maia Wikaira, no Tūrangi. Mea ai, nā tōna hononga ki te aho matua, me taku hononga hoki ki te aho matua. Tērā ko taku whakaaro nui ki te tuku i tōku taonga ki aia. Te mei haere mātou ki Amerika, te whakaaro nui mo te ako i ngā tini āhuatanga o rātou mā o Amerika. Engari ka tūtaki i tētahi wahine no Aotearoa tonu. Whai, tino whakaawea i ahau. Tēnei rā mātou o te pōkaitara o te ao, e mihi kawana kia koutou, o te runanga o Ngai Tahu, te whakapuari i tēnei o ngā ara kia mātou, hei whai, mo ngā rangatahi, kaitahu katoa, tēnei rā mātou e mihi kawana ana kia koutou, tēnā koutou.
Kia ora koutou, ko Luke McKenzie tuku ingoa. I was one of 10 rangatahi chosen by Ngai Tahu for the hikoi over to Silicon Valley in San Francisco. I'm really pleased to be able to share a few of my reflection. What can I say? It was an amazing experience right from the start, making new friends, meeting so many amazing people, and opening my eyes and my mind to all sorts of different opportunities and ideas. Every day was an adventure, and way too much to cover in a few minutes, so I'll just try to zero in on a few of the highlights for me. I'd have to say the field trip to NASA definitely made my 14th birthday a pretty memorable occasion. Next, we visited Stanford University and met some of the graduate students, a university that has produced some of the best minds and ideas in the world. We had a great session with Dara from FileMaker, where she outlined her role in the organisation and the groundbreaking technology that they are involved in developing. I really enjoyed the workshop with Dr. Richard Lum, where he talked about making better sense of the world around us so that we can create a better future, something I'm sure we all want. I was really impressed with Uber, and it's one of the fastest growing and new organisations in the world, using cutting technology to make the world a better place. Watch that space. Andrew Zimmerman talked to us about creating a success mindset, moving people from surviving to thriving situations. That really gave me a lot to think about and where I'm heading in the future. To sum up the key message I took away from all the people and all the places we went to, it showed how much persistence and how driven they were to achieve their goals. You don't have to be the smartest person, but you just need to set your mind to it and believe in yourself. Of course, all work, no play would have been pretty intense, so I'm happy to say that we did manage to squeeze in a little bit of downtime. Biking across the San Francisco Bridge provided us with the most amazing view of an armed forces aerial display that just happened to be on the day we were there, a real-life Top Gun show. Finally, I'd just like to say a big thank you to all the team at Ngai Tahu, and particularly the CEO, Arahia Bennett, my fellow students, and last but not least, my amazing kaiako, Mama Gainel, Mātua Te Rau, Mads and Jess, for helping to make this the trip of a lifetime, an experience I'll never forget.
Tēnā koutou, ko Abraham ahau, no Kati Hui rapa ahau. Just a minute. Okay, here we go. So the Te Pōkaiao trip was great. I couldn't even imagine getting to go to the United States of America at the start of this year, and I got to live that experience just last month. It's pretty crazy. The most memorable experience wasn't going to like Facebook or anything like that. Facebook was amazing, but getting to talk to Sarah at Stanford, she was one of the graduates there, was really inspiring for me, and she taught me that you didn't have to become a hermit and live in a cave to help the environment and just the world in general. I feel I've really grown and have learned to work harder in school and at home, and feel more comfortable using te reo, strangely enough. But I would really like to thank Mark, Arihia and Hannah, as this journey couldn't have been possible without their support, and all of us are benefiting from their help. And I just hope they realise how much this trip has helped the new generation of Ngai Tahu. I learned so much, and I'm glad I am back and sharing my newfound knowledge with my whānau and my iwi. So for that, I thank everyone that contributed to our epic hikoi to the States. If there's ever another te pokaeo, I'm always available. Kia ora.
Matua tama wairua tapu me ngā ana hirapono me te māngai hei tautoko mai ai nei a kinei ai. Tuatahi karere ana kumihi kia koutou katoa kua imi mai nei I tēnei rā. Kia koutou te kāhui o te runanga o Ngai Tahu. He pīkimi kia koutou mō tō tautoko I tēnei kaupapa arā ko te pōkaiao. Ko ai tēnei e tū atu ki mua I a koutou. Ko Ngahiraka Dallas tōku ingoa. He uria houn no ora ka purima. No reira kia ora. What an honour it was to partake in this experience. It would not have been possible without the tautoko from Ngai Tahu and our whānau. What has stuck to me the most was the fact that I was pushed far out of my comfort zone and forced to step up. So, yeah. From the beginning of this year, I was involved in a course with Te Araukura, focused around the leadership in rangatahi's lives. And up until the trip to Silicon Valley, and having the opportunity to see what else the world withholds. I know that the strong bond our ope has made will be with us forever, and having this advantage to get to know each other, ourselves, and our Ngai Tahutanga will prepare us to utilise these learnings in our everyday lives and be the future kanohi for Ngai Tahu and ngā rangatira moa popo. Nō reira, anei mātou te pōkaiao e riri ana ngā mihi ki a koutou katoa. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa. Now there's a video just detailing on our trip. All the way from New Zealand. We're here in Silicon Valley, hoping to adapt more with science and technology and merging that with our Māori tanga.
I actually like learning all this new stuff, like learning all these life experiences, meeting all these people, and just having a real good time. And I want to take out of this journey is to look at all the different jobs that are in the world from technology and encourage future generations to stay in school and study hard and show them where that you can go.
We've come to explore how other people have made it and gone far in their lives, and how we as a small country and small people can do that in a big world that we live in.
It's really cool because you can strut yourself and be like, oh, we're here representing Ngai Tahu in New Zealand, and they think we're the next generation to lead the world.
Everything that's led up to this has been awesome. Especially today, we got to go to NASA, and NASA was my dream. It was an amazing opportunity, and there's even more to come.
Ora te whakaro, ke waho atu, ke waho ke atu I te pauka. E tai e huna tonu ana I roto I tō rātou shell meki. Engari, toku mōhio hei te mutunga wiki, ka tino puta I taua shell, ka puaki te henengaros. Kei te kite, ke tino kite koe ko aho piki ake te whakawhanangatanga I wainga I a mātou o te pōkaitara o te ao, I wainga nui a mātou ake.
Yeah, it's just cool meeting lots of other people, but it's probably a highlight.
After being on this trip for just even a couple of days really, I'm feeling a lot more confident in speaking reo in front of everyone.
It's also really awesome that I can take my interests from technology and fuse them with te reo and stuff like that.
I think it's going to give me a good insight into how like people start off with this little spark of an idea and they ignite it into a big fire, like Google, for example.
It's like, you know, Silicon Valley's our future and it has all the technology, and so if we could apply those ideas to New Zealand's problems, then that's really special.
I never used to have real close connections to Ngai Tahu. Or like coming through here and meeting everyone sort of brought me back. And now I tell everyone Ngai Tahu.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Can I get another huge round of applause, please, for Te Pōhaiao? A presentation from a group who've been in the United States. We've had rangatahi who've been in London, one in Shanghai, and of course, Sean in Bluff. So, sort of throw that in there. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes Hui Ato 2016. Thank you, Arihia. Thank you, Alex, for your presentation today as well. Can I say very quickly to the whānau of Koko Rarata, Ngā Tahu Hui kai, e te Pāpā Charlie, thank you for your grace, for your humility, and for your understanding, and for allowing us to have the hui here today. We know how much and how important it was for you to host Hui Ato. And so for allowing us to bring this hui here today, we really appreciate your loving thoughts and enabling that to happen. So Elizabeth, Charlie, e te whānau, koutou katoa, Koko Rarata, tēnā koutou katoa. Can I also thank Tuahuriri for undertaking the manaki of the hui here today at Te Whare o Te Waipounamu. We appreciate your presence and we appreciate your manakitanga as well. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. And very finally, ladies and gentlemen, you will know about the news in Kaikoura and everything that is being done to help the whānau in Kaikoura. You would have seen the pānui from Tāmark yesterday. If you would like to give donations of food or any other resource of that nature, we are encouraging you to do that through the Red Cross. They have people on the ground, and we have been given clear communication that will determine the fact that we are working with the Red Cross on the ground through Takahanga Marae. So please, any food donations or the like, send through to the Red Cross. They are administering on the ground in Kaikoura. And any direct donations of a financial kind you would like to make to the whānau in Kaikoura and to Takahanga Marae. There is a Takahanga Marae Give a Little page. Go onto the Give a Little website with Takahanga Marae, and we would encourage you to give some resource and support in that way. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes Hui Ato 2016. Thank you all very much for joining us at home. Thank you all very much for coming here today to Te Whare o Te Waipounamu, and for those of our whānau in Aoraki, and for those also across the takiwā in our 4 regional hubs. We really appreciate you connecting with us in Murihiku, in Araitiuru, in Hokitika, and also in another place that I've forgotten about. But anyway, we had 4 regional hubs. So thank Arahuda, Hokitika. So thank you. Can't forget that one of my favourite places, Arahuda Hokitika. Can I now ask Ngai Tuahuriri and Te Maire to close our hui today? Tēnā koutou katoa.
Tēnā rā koutou. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I've noticed it for a while, but we're in good hands in the future with our rangatahi. So thank you. Nō reira, me ino e tātou ki a ihoa, ki a tauterangi Māria, ki rongi a tātou katoa. Me te aroha nō ki a rātou, ngā whanaunga kei roto i ngā kāinga ki Kaikoura. Nō reire te māngai e ngāne hera pono e te toko toru tapu. Whakaungia mai mātou ki roto i tō aroha nō, pāhiratia ki te rangi Māori e ngā wā katoa, ko te māngai, hei tautoko mai ai anei, ākene nei ai.